our new friend who is streaming from US, and he's gonna take us on a journey tonight, speaking about how he was invited to participate in the evolution of the planet. And he was invited during a conference he had in the inner earth. Some of you here might have heard about the inner earth civilizations, the inner earth cities. Well, Lowell Johnson has been there, and he's gonna now tell us how he has felt during this trip and how he was invited there and anything about it that he wants to share. Lowell, I should mention that I'm going to translate everything in Romanian. I forgot to tell you this, but it is important because the people in Romania need to also comprehend. That's specifically why I've chosen to do this live with you, in addition to all the other lives that you've had, because people in Romania need this information so much, because here we have so many in-earth civilizations that are talking to us and overlooking this country every day. So I'm translating what I just said, and then you're more than welcome to add your presentation of yourself.
I couldn't agree more. Everyone needs to know. The experience I had, and we'll get into the details because it was extraordinary. I stumble about where to begin because I'm a Capricorn. I think you need to go back to the beginning and understand this journey. And even when this experience happened, I believed that it was going to be the story I was going to tell for the rest of my life. And I was looking forward to enhancing my relationship with the Lemurians. Well, it wasn't that in the end. That was an experience that happened at the end of July in 2020, and it really took me months for me to assimilate what had really happened.
Yeah, integrate.
I began to tell people about it immediately after it happened. Was I prepared to do it properly? No, I wasn't in retrospect. But I was looking for a touchstone, just like all of us, as we start to, this awareness just blossoms. We would love to be able to talk to somebody else that's been there, done that. And man, I spent a lot of time researching Telos and the Lemurians and everything I could find right after it happened. I scoured the internet and found a couple people that allegedly had channeled them. And to make a long story short, I couldn't find anybody that had been there. Not since this interaction between Guy Ballard and Saint Germain took place in 1930s. That was the last contact I had physically heard. So I'll stop for a moment.
Thank you. I ask the permission to translate. Deci, bună seara tuturor! Suntem aici cu Lowell Johnson, un nou prieten al nostru care ne va povesti în această seară despre călătoria sa în interiorul Pământului, în orașul Telos. Am ales să facem această discuție cu el, deoarece am avut și eu experiențe similare și pentru că am simțit că este foarte important pentru oamenii de pe planetă și pentru cei din România, deoarece avem foarte multe orașe în interiorul Pământului sau într-o dimensiune paralelă care are legătură cu interiorul Pământului și trebuie să știm mai multe despre asta. Lowell ne spune că el a fost încă din 2016 chemat către spiritualitate, dar abia de curând a avut această călătorie și nu se aștepta, a crezut că va avea o singură poveste pe care va spune toată viața, însă se pare că lucrurile au evoluat foarte mult de când el a fost invitat în interiorul Pământului, în orașul Telos, și a încercat să caute foarte mult oameni similari care au fost invitați sau duși în aceste dimensiuni paralele, în aceste civilizații paralele, pentru a putea să relaționeze cu ei. Cei care sunteți pe Facebook și Insta, aveți în descrierea videoclipului pe Facebook și în bio pe Insta modul în care puteți să accesați toată această discuție. Este gratuit dacă vă înscrieți în grupul de WhatsApp sau puteți avea pachetul complet al festivalului. Thank you, Lowell. So how long ago did this happen? Which year was it?
2020, July, the end of the year. It was during COVID. You know, I don't say that word out loud because I'm not interested in sending that intent out there. But this is the time period that it took place. There was a series of circumstances that led up to that. I had been consulting the year before that on a casino project in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My base where I live right now is in California. And during that last year I was there, and I had consulted on this project twice since like 2011. Something was telling me that there was something else I should be doing. Out of 450 employees there were like 2 others I could have these kinds of conversations with. But by the time we got to the end of the year, I was determined to leave the industry. It was time for me really to retire. So I had left. I had put money down on a house in Vegas. I was going to consult from there. And on the way driving back from Louisiana to Nevada, my guides were telling me, don't close on the house. Well, I didn't have a lot of money in escrow, but it was at risk. And by the time I had decided to go visit with my son in California first, because there was about 10 days in between the closing. That's when the third day I got there, COVID locked everything down. So no one was going anywhere. So there's the reason why you didn't close on the house in Nevada, Lowell.
Totally. I'll translate. Deci el a avut această experiență în anul 2020, chiar când începea situația, pandemia pe planetă, și el a lucrat în domeniul hotelier și al industriei ospitalității pentru mulți ani și se pregătea să se pensioneze și plănuia să ia o casă într-o zonă în Vegas pentru a face consultații de acolo, consultanță în domeniul hotelier. A început demersurile pentru această casă și ghizii lui, pentru că avea deja o pregătire spirituală, ghizii lui îi spuneau să nu finalizeze afacerea respectivă și să nu se îndrepte în acea direcție pentru că are altceva de făcut. Atunci a decis să se întâlnească pentru o săptămână cu fiul său, pentru că mai avea o săptămână până la încheierea afacerii cu casa și așa a început tot lockdown-ul și a descoperit el că nu avea ce să facă în Vegas și nu avea de ce să ia acea casă și a rămas cumva în Mount Shasta. This is where you stayed in Mount Shasta eventually?
Yes. That was in February. And so no one was going anywhere for a while. But by the time we got to the end of June, those shelter-in-place restrictions had been relaxed. And all I wanted to do was get out. I won't go through how unpleasant it was. Thank God my son gave me a place to stay. I crashed on his couch, but he is in a house with his own roommates. And they had their own challenges. So by the time it got to the end of June, I just needed to get out. And where I historically connect was always in nature. I had intended to go to some of the national parks in the southwestern parts of the United States, but according to social media, many of those places might not even be open. And as soon As
Yes.
I got that in my head, Mount Shasta was placed in there next. And so I just followed my guide.
Yeah.
I had heard about it and I'd driven by it a few times, but really didn't have any detailed information on it. When I did the logistics, it was about 4 hours from where I lived. So it's a morning drive or an afternoon drive, and you're there. So I thought, why not? I was going to launch off on my own. So I headed to Mount Shasta.
That's exactly how people get invited there. Deci el a primit vestea că America intră în lockdown și a trebuit să rămână la casa fiului său, dar era destul de incomod pentru că acesta avea și colegi de casă și, mă rog, era o altă generație, așa mai departe. Așa că imediat ce, deși a stat din februarie până în iunie, apoi s-a simțit chemat, când restricțiile s-au mai relaxat, s-a simțit chemat să meargă în natură, pentru că acolo el își refăcea câmpurile energetice și se simțea foarte bine. Și a mers, inițial vroia să meargă către Sedona, dar a fost ghidat să meargă către Mount Shasta, pentru că parcurile naționale către care plănuia să se îndrepte inițial erau închise încă din cauza restricțiilor. Și așa a ajuns în Mount Shasta, care, pentru cei care nu știu, Mount Shasta este un munte sacru în nordul Californiei și este faimos pentru civilizațiile din interiorul Pământului care locuiesc acolo și despre care s-a auzit pe planetă foarte mult datorită cărților numite Telos, scrise de Aurelia Louise Jones, care au prezentat conducătorii acestor civilizații din interiorul Pământului, cum ar fi Adama și alții. I just said that the Mount Shasta is famous for the inner earth civilizations that are hosted in that area, that are dwelling in that area, and that people mostly heard about it because of the books that are written about these inner earth civilizations. Some of them are called Telos, and they've heard even in Romania about Adama and other inner earth leaders that are, they're also streaming here. So people in Romania, were also connected to these civilizations. It's not because people understand it like a 3D reality located under the mountain of some country. But what I always explain to people, and I hope now you can clarify that better, what I've seen in my vision and when I was taking there energetically is that it's not a physical dimension that you can pinpoint on a map. It's actually an ethereal or energetic dimension that you can actually access from certain points around the planet. So you can access Telos from here in the mountains of Romania as well, or you can access our cities, Apolos, from Mount Shasta, because it's a dimension, it's not a location, it's not geography like we're used to think of it here. Please,
You
I've
you
seen.
described it perfectly. To the best of our three-dimensional abilities, you described multidimensionality. But if there's one thing I hope people carry away from this, it's not that some guy finally went to Telos and came back to talk about it. It's the idea of multidimensionality. I wasn't really
Yes.
aware of our vibratory levels and what that even meant and what influence it had. But boy, what I learned is once your vibration levels rise, that's how you get to experience the other things that are around us always.
All the
We're just
time.
oblivious to things in higher dimensions because we don't vibrate at that rate. So I hope that people, it's a concept you have to embrace. The idea of trying to explain the density of ethers and how they work in different dimensions, none of us are ready for. And even those of us that think we're advanced along our path, it's difficult for us to put into words.
Yes, but some of us through direct experience have experienced the fact that, for example, the mind and even the body can change density. So in our journey, we've had many people who have experienced bilocation without even learning it, or becoming invisible without even learning it in this life. It happened to me a few times, and it was like scary to my friends. Some have experienced, not needing food for a long amount of time. Where here we are educated that in physical world you need physical nourishment to develop cells, to multiply your cells and regenerate and so on. Well, that's not true. It's all made of energy. At the origin of your cells, there's atoms, and atoms is energy, and you're naturally producing it. So that's a dream that you need matter to develop matter. It's all energy. So all that stuff that some of the people in our audience are comprehending and experiencing, I'm sure it's easy to understand that you don't think of another dimension as geographically located, rather than access through a certain level of consciousness that you are reaching, and then you're not accessing by going to a place. You're accessing it by going in a certain state. And from there you are free to access it even from your bed if you want to, or from whatever, your couch. Deci explicăm acum un pic multidimensionalitatea și Lowell spune că pentru el mai important este să înțeleagă lumea că noi suntem ființe multidimensionale, decât să se gândească lumea la faptul că, uite, tipul ăsta a fost într-un oraș, într-o civilizație avansată. Este important să înțelegem că noi putem avea aceste experiențe și că, practic, dimensiunile pe care nu le percepem cu ochiul liber sau cu cele 5 simțuri ne sunt la dispoziție totuși și sunt aici permanent alături de noi, doar că noi le ignorăm datorită faptului că încă nu ne-am sintonizat frecvența pe acele vibrații ca să le putem percepe. Dar și asta am explicat și eu, că oamenii din audiență, majoritatea, au avut experiențe multidimensionale, au fost în situația în care unii au experimentat bilocație, alții au experimentat lipsa nevoii de hrană fizică, alții au experimentat călătoriile astrale sau alte tipuri de invizibilitate, în cazul meu că corpul își poate schimba frecvența și deveni invizibil, sau lipsa foamei și lipsa de nevoii de hrană fizică pentru o perioadă foarte mare de timp, pentru că știm că pe măsură ce îți schimbi vibrația corpului fizic, celulele tale se întorc la tiparul original în care ești hrănit cu energie și produci energie în mod natural, nu neapărat ingerând materie. That's gonna be an interesting conversation. It's going all directions.
Look, what we spend our time on today, there are multiple rabbit holes for people to go down. It took me time to kind of backtrack and see what had happened along the way, because Telos wasn't going to be the end of my story. Anyway, I don't want to jump ahead of myself.
That's the beginning. It's just the beginning.
Yes. So I got to Shasta right after the 4th of July, and my intention was to stay for a week and see what I could learn. And then my son, none of us were working because of COVID lockdown. We were going to meet some other place nearby, like in Tahoe or Reno, for the second week. And I was hiking in somewhere different every day. I just like to be in nature, and I don't like to go where other people go. So I go off trail most of the time. And in retrospect, what I was being drawn to were energetic spots. I didn't really understand what I was seeking, but I wasn't looking for people necessarily. The idea of an ascended master would come a couple of weeks down the line while I was there, but every day I was experiencing like these heightened senses of some kind of palpable energy that I didn't understand where it came from. By the end of the first week, and I hadn't hiked in the same place twice, I knew I wasn't done. And so I reached out to my son and said, I'm not done here. And there's some other places I want to go. Would you mind if I stayed another week? And he said, no, stay as long as you like. Well, to get ahead of myself, I left 5 weeks
Go figure.
later because I had to be back in Santa Rosa, or I probably would have stayed longer. And I rarely hiked in the same place twice. What I'll
Yes.
realize after the second week is overhearing a couple, in my age range commenting on how they were hiking yesterday. And so early in the morning, they felt refreshed, like their physicality was different and they couldn't understand it. And that's when it occurred to me I was suffering from the same condition. I was hiking like I was in my early 20s every day without a day of rest in between. And the next day I would go out and do it again and again and again and again. That's when I recognized how palpable this energy was here. And every time I've been there, all I need to do is get my boots somewhere on the mountain, and that energy is just there.
Would take you it would naturally take you places. Ok, I will translate. El a ajuns în Mount Shasta și plănuise să stea o săptămână. În mod natural era atras de anumite zone energetice și le simțea, le percepea pur și simplu. Și după o săptămână de drumeții și drumețiile erau în fiecare zi într-un loc nou, și-a dat seama că nu a terminat ce avea de făcut acolo sau ceea ce venise să facă în muntele Shasta și a spus fiului lui, cred că o să mai rămân o săptămână, pentru că ei își stabiliseră să se întâlnească. După încă 5 săptămâni el era încă acolo, deci a continuat această călătorie în mod intuitiv atâta timp cât a simțit că mai are nevoie să meargă în locurile din Mount Shasta și a constatat și cu toate astea nu se simțea obosit. Asta a sesizat-o atunci când aceeași vârstă cu el și cu cam aceeași condiție fizică au început să discute lângă el că e curios că nu se simt obosiți deloc de drume. We have similar experiences here in the mountains of Romania. We have, huge crystals underneath the earth. There's been books written about it. If you've read the books of Raducin Amar, and now we have another book being published in English. It's called Life on Gaia, with intergalactic messages from advanced civilizations. Crystals in the interior of the mountains don't feel tired. We're going on the mountain to get energized, actually.
That I chose to get there, I got there around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So there wasn't a lot of time for me to think about hiking. So I thought I'll just go down the main drag and, peek in the stores. There's at least 5 or 6 crystal shops, so that would keep me busy. At least I would familiarize myself with town. So after I kind of took yes, there you go.
And this
Once I took kind of a measure of town, then there was one road called Everett Memorial Highway that from town goes as high on the mountain as you can drive. So it's almost 8,000 feet elevation when you get to that spot. But there's actually kind of 3 levels of parking lots that are there. I had heard about the area the day that I was walking around in one of the crystal shops that I'll get attached to before my trip is done. I was overhearing some of the conversations the day I was there because it was busy. I had questions about a particular crystal I was seeking, but it wasn't going to be the day for me to ask that question. A couple of days later, I'll come back and satisfy that. But anyway, I was overhearing conversations about stargazing, and well, that got my attention because it hadn't occurred to me that this place would be ideal for that. When you can get up on the mountain, there's no light pollution, and on a new moon night especially, wow, you can actually see the Milky Way the way that you're supposed to see it. Yes. So the discussions were about driving up there to do the stargazing, and now I revealed I was eavesdropping because I said, well, can anybody go there? And the answer was, it's a parking lot. Of course you can go there.
Lose track because it's a lot of information. Deci el spune că a mers în Mount Shasta și în prima zi a mers către zonele turistice populate, magazine de cristale și așa mai departe. Și a vrut să întrebe despre un cristal, dar în timp ce era acolo a auzit despre ceva mai interesant, zone în care se puteau face anumite exerciții de privit la stele. El folosește și un telescop și așa mai departe. Și a întrebat pe oameni de unde poate să privească mai bine și a fost ghidat către o anumită zonă. Yes, we can continue.
Those were all side effects I didn't expect. To be able to see the sky like that, I would have traveled to Mount Shasta just to do that. But there was going to be other things that I'll see while I'm there, stargazing like that. As soon as I had heard that, I had rented a place to stay. But I think out of the first 10 nights I was there, because I ended up extending initially for another week, I probably spent at least 7 or 8 nights out stargazing. And I'd stay up there till midnight or so until either got too chilly to do that, or I was just getting tired, and then I'd go back to where I was. But it was amazing to see the skies. That will be the first place I will see actual, if you want to call it UFO activity, UAP, whatever label you want to attach to it. I will witness it one night. That I was referring to the differences between a full moon and a new moon on the effect it has on what you can see in the sky. And when we got to the cycle where the full moon came around, I was actually facing away from Shasta while I was looking at the sky. Well, tonight, I thought, given the moon conditions, I'm going to turn back and look at the mountain, because I've heard there's all this other activity. Let's see if I can see some. Well, while I'm looking in that direction, I see a couple of shooting stars, and they were incredible until I saw one. Now, Polaris, the North Star, is right over Mount Shasta. And I see a shooting star, I believe, go straight down to the mountain, disappear for a moment, and then go that way.
That's what they do. Yeah,
that was not a shooting star.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm going to translate this. Deci el a mers pentru că avea obiceiul ăsta și acasă și a mers pentru aproape o săptămână în fiecare noapte până târziu să se uite la stele și a văzut că erau diferențe de energetică între lună plină și lună nouă, de exemplu, și așa mai departe. În noaptea respectivă a văzut niște stele căzătoare și pe una dintre ele a crezut-o a fi tot stea căzătoare, dar în final a văzut că era o stea care se mișca într-un mod ciudat și a înțeles că este o navă, probabil, sau un alt mod de a se exprima al acestor ființe de lumină. All right.
That settled once and for all the existence of UFOs. I'll see some lenticular clouds, what we've been trained to call them and understand them to be. That occurrence will happen several times while I'm there. And they're just unusual to begin with, because more often than not, there aren't any other clouds in the sky anywhere. So it's not like cloud pattern came across and some of it caught on the top of the mountain. It's not like that. And until you really get to see that and put into perspective for yourself, you really don't know what to make of it. So we settle for the answer we've been given. Yeah, those are lenticular clouds, and that's what science tells it is. Well, science isn't ready to understand what we understand.
For what we are experiencing, yes. And here we have gatherings up on the mountain in a very specific sacred site. And there's been UFO or inner Earth ships, sightseeings there very frequently. And every time we gather there, as soon as we have a meditation or even an interesting conversation, we have these clouds appearing. And it's especially, and if we don't pay attention, one of us is specifically called outside to come out and see it and show it to the group. So it's
Yes.
always like this. So somebody gets, or two people from two different directions, we meet outside. Why are you out? I was told to get out. Look at the sky. So we always have these experiences where they don't really make a light show every day, but they're certainly cloaked in very nice clouds, and they're very obvious if you look at it. And I will translate so that Romanians can understand, but
Okay.
it's very frequent here that we even go out on the balcony and film, with telephones. We film up in the sky, objects moving around, or in the evening, there's lights moving around, clearly not stars. So very intense cosmoport activity in right across the street, if you will, from where I live. But I'm living next to the Sphinx of Romania, so that's quite normal. That's something that should happen. Yeah.
Yes.
El spune că în momentul în care a început să se uite la stele în zona respectivă, în zona muntelui Shasta, i s-au clarificat toate dubiile legate de obiectele neidentificate, obiecte zburătoare neidentificate, că sunt din afara Pământului, că sunt din interiorul Pământului. Pentru el era clar că ele există, deoarece în fiecare seară vedea câte ceva nou din acest punct de vedere. Și nu doar stele care se mișcau într-un mod ciudat și care în mod clar erau nave, dar și acei nori care pentru oamenii de știință sunt doar un fenomen natural, dar noi știm că sunt practic modul lor de a ni se arăta. Iar eu îi explicam că și aici în România noi avem retreat-uri sau adunări într-un loc, în mai multe locuri sacre ale României, dar unul în mod specific este foarte cunoscut pentru aceste apariții ale navelor sau diverse jocuri de lumini pe care ei le fac. Și de câte ori începem o meditație sau chiar și doar o conversație interesantă, avem nave care apar sub forma acestor nori și dacă nu suntem atenți și nu le observăm, unul dintre noi sau cel puțin doi dintre noi sunt chemați afară de ghizii noștri interiori pentru a putea observa aceste nave și efectiv ți se spune să mergi afară și când te uiți pe cer, ele sunt acolo și te-au chemat ca să poți observa și să poți arăta către restul grupului. Și e normal să fie așa, deoarece locuiesc în preajma Sfinxului românesc și este un cosmoport cunoscut aici, adică filmăm și cu camerele în plină zi sau noaptea diverse jocuri ale acestor obiecte neidentificate. Yeah, so it's intense and it's getting more and more intense with all the disclosures on the planet. So they're willing to be known by now. They're willing to contact. That's what I feel.
I understand the reason why they're here.
Yes.
And that's another story to tell at another time to put that whole timeline together. But let's just say it had to do with us developing nuclear weapons back in the 30s and 40s. That's when it got their attention. When we demonstrated what we were willing to do to the planet that we didn't own, this is a galactic asset. And we think that it's up to us to be able to destroy it the way that we are. Well, when we showed them what we were capable of doing, we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima.
Yes.
That is the point at which they stepped in. Yes. Up to that point, assisting in humanity's evolution was forbidden. But it's not to say that we hadn't been manipulated along the way. But when that finally happened, that's when they figured out another way. That the star seeds were going to begin to start to incarnate here on the planet. So those of us, my Pleiadian roots came I was one of those. I didn't know anything about it up until, the point I hit like 6 decades. But now I understand why I was born when I was doing. It explains what my interest is right now and what I came to do and serve on this side. And it
Yeah.
was going to coincide with the shift in Earth's consciousness. So
Yeah.
all this is going to play out in my lifetime. So,
Yeah.
boys and girls, the clock is ticking and I'm no spring chicken.
Buckle up, buckle up.
There
Well,
you go.
da. Ce spune el este că deja, eu am spus că ei vor deja să fie cunoscuți și să intre în contact cu noi și el a spus că de mult timp au început să intervină, până la un anumit punct în istoria planetei nu au avut permisiunea să intervină, dar după ce am început să ne jucăm cu bombele nucleare, atunci a devenit imperios necesar ca ei să ne păzească cu atenție, pentru că planeta este un bun intergalactic, nu este bunul personal al oamenilor și atunci este de datoria lor să se asigure că noi nu o aruncăm în aer. Și au început să găsească metode mai simple de a interveni, la modul că unii dintre ei s-au încarnat sau ne-am încarnat aici pe planetă pentru a ajuta umanitatea și spune că și el și mulți dintre copiii Indigo, care sunt peste 50-60 de ani ca vârstă, au venit aici pentru a începe acest proces de dezvoltare și evoluție a umanității și acum are certitudinea că acest salt dimensional pe care umanitatea îl face se va întâmpla pe parcursul vieții lui de acum și este convins că asta este iminent, mai ales că el nu este foarte tânăr și nu mai are mult timp aici, deci sigur tot lucrurile se vor întâmpla într-un timp foarte scurt. How was it for you to be contacted by an advanced civilization? Cum a fost pentru tine să fii contactat de o civilizație avansată?
You're anxious and excited all at the same time. At least I was. Now, I can't speak to how anybody else would have reacted in that situation. Here's why I drew the conclusion that my vibration had to have been high enough to have this experience in the first place. Over the time between in 2016, when all this kind of opened up, I was on a tear at the beginning to get a hold of my meditative life.
Mm-hmm.
And once I found a mechanism for that to be able to achieve that level of quiet and serene and peace so that I could enter the field of probabilities, that's when all of this started to open up. It helped me eliminate fear and seeing it from that third dimensional perspective. So when you asked me how this achieved, it would have been easy for me to let fear get a hold of me, but I was beyond that point.
Yes.
And what I hope others are dealing with is seeing this third dimensional experiment for what it is and the lessons we have to learn and the mistakes that come along with it. All that is part of your evolution. And thank you for the crap you had to go through on behalf of the collective in the end.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I've heard it so many times, when I was going through tough time and really, really, I haven't been hurt particularly from my own experiences, even though mine have been crappy enough to hurt me, but I also have been very hurt by what humans are doing to each other. That's what hurt me the most. And I can feel the density, if you will, or the collective pain, the collective suffering, all that stuff. I can feel it sometimes as pain in my body or as anxiety in my psyche, even though I meditate for hours and so on. But still, I've developed this sensitivity because part of my work is to work with Gaia and with the collective consciousness. So that's the alarm or alert we were getting to know that something is happening beyond our sight, and that's what hurt me the most, the things that humans are capable of doing to each other, and when I was hurting the most, some others said, we are so grateful that you've come here and you've done this experience for us to be able to experience it through you or to learn from you and so on. And at some point I was like, get the F down here, you know, you're so cool. Like, cut the BS. No, but you have to say it at some point. Yeah, I did. But I can't even be proud of myself. Like, get down here and help us, you know?
Well, here, I'll say this and then you should translate. Honey,
Yes,
that's our third dimensional reflex. This is how, as a human
of
being,
course,
I react to the things
of
that I
course.
see around me that don't make sense. However,
Mm,
we straddle dimensions. And so
yes,
this is why we see things from a higher perspective and we can report
totally,
such.
totally.
But it's
Yes,
hard living in here and relying on that.
yes, and I've been told, you know, I've been told we've been with you forever. And you are with us forever. So there's no up and down. There's just you aligning your vibrationally field back up so that you can frequency match the level of bliss and harmony that you are meant to bring. That's what I've been told. So
You said it perfectly.
I've got it. I got it. Okay. Yeah, but sometimes it, you know, when it hurts, you're getting this feeling like get down here. And I've been told in December, on the 12/12 of December, when we had this amazing meditation. So we had one on 11/11 and one on 12/12, that the planet is now, if 10 people on 11/11, they told me if 10 people that are connected in some way, like a bit higher than the masses, vibrationally, they ask for help, like pure-hearted request for help, we no longer have to struggle here by ourselves. We
Correct.
are,
The tribe is
yeah,
showing up. Look at
yeah.
all of us. We
They
found
said,
one another.
yeah, absolutely. But they said, we are here for you. We've been overlooking this planet for hundreds of years now. We've been allowed to intervene when you were in big danger, but now you can get help with little things as well. So just ask for help, at least 10 of you, and the timeline on this planet will shift completely. And we did ask for help. And I feel it shifted.
When
That's
you were
that's how
talking about the choices you made, to me, I interpret that as that space you chose to hold. And when we do that at the levels that we vibrate, we get to offset a lot of
I know.
others that don't get it. And so it's important for us. And I really didn't see myself as that. I didn't. But I know there's a responsibility that I hold and I treasure it, that I see more than the rest of you see,
Yes,
most of the rest of you see. And it's my responsibility to do what I can to help you see that. Now, once I
yes,
presented my case, my obligation's been met. It's up
yes.
to you now, sovereign being with free will, to
Yeah,
choose to decide whether you're going to open yourself up to things you didn't experience or understand before so that you
yeah,
can, because the earth is about to move into a level where that's all she is. And
yes,
everything else entropies away. So your
yes.
little soul is ready for this, I assume, if you're one of the service to others beings that I know is in the tribe.
Yes. Yes, I'm going to
But the
translate.
service to self people aren't going easy.
Yes, yes. Spunem că planeta e acum gata să treacă într-un nou nivel de vibrație și pentru noi, cei care am venit să ajutăm cu asta, uneori a fost provocator și el mi-a mulțumit, înainte să începem acest nou nivel de discuție, mi-a mulțumit pentru toate suferințele prin care am trecut, pentru că asta a ajutat cumva la upgradarea conștiinței colective, nu doar la conștiința mea personală. Și cred că ne-a mulțumit tuturor, nu doar mie. Iar eu am spus că da, mi s-a spus asta de multe ori și în momentele grele, când am suferit, de multe ori nu am suferit neapărat din experiența mea personală, din lucrurile pe care le trăiam eu în viața mea, ci mai ales din conștiința colectivă din care percepeam această suferință colectivă sau durerile colective sau lucrurile dureroase pe care oamenii și le fac unii altora, răutatea de care oamenii au putut să dea dovadă de-a lungul timpului și mai ales acum în paradigma asta de transformare, de multe ori puteam să simt dureri puternice în corp sau tensiuni puternice în câmpul meu energetic atunci când lucruri grave se întâmplau pe planetă. Dar pentru că am venit aici să ajutăm, corpul nostru este sintonizat să aibă aceste semnale de alarmă când planeta nu este tocmai într-o stare bună și în momentele astea grele, uneori ființele de lumină sau chiar ajutoarele din jurul meu îmi spuneau: noi îți mulțumim că faci această experiență și că noi toți învățăm din asta și că toți evoluăm datorită acestui fapt. Și uneori mă enervam și spuneam: știi, mai bine ați coboră aici dacă tot sunteți atât de bucuroși de experiențele noastre. Ideea este că în noiembrie, pe 11-11 ne-au spus că dacă 10 dintre noi cer ajutor cu inima curată, nu mai trebuie să ne chinuim de unii singuri să rezolvăm problemele noastre planetare, ci putem primi ajutor intergalactic. Și atunci 10 oameni au cerut și lucrurile pe planetă s-au schimbat și aici spune și el că într-adevăr s-a petrecut o schimbare și că mulți dintre noi resimțim această schimbare la nivel foarte intens, dar special pentru asta am venit aici și nu e întotdeauna ușor pentru lucrătorii în lumină să perceapă aceste lucruri. Doar că în momentul în care tu ai ajuns aici, e clar că erai pregătit pentru lucrurile astea și odată ce el sau altcineva și-a făcut datoria de a-ți trimite acest mesaj, deja în momentul în care ai aflat adevărul, ai o responsabilitate de a acționa asupra lui. Nu mai este. Deci mingea e la tine în teren odată ce noi ți-am spus lucrurile astea și e responsabilitatea ta cumva cum le gestionezi și cum evoluezi de aici înainte odată ce le afli. Ok. It's been a long, let's do shorter phrases so that I make sure I don't miss out on anything.
Yeah, because we tend to, there's another rabbit hole that we start to go down, and okay, let's just nip that right now or we'll be here all day talking about that.
Thank you too.
But that's the nature of what we've unlocked. I'm not saying I learned anything new. I'm convinced that what experiences I am revealing to myself have all been locked away in my Akash for a long time. And when I was told, and I want to jump ahead because we need to cover Telos and how all that manifested, I began to have a connection to others in the way that channelers do. Now, I don't see myself as a channeler, and I say that very measuredly now because there's information that flows through me that, honest to God, I don't know where it came from. Years ago, when it first started, I started to write these things down because they were so profound. I couldn't believe myself hearing them. And I wanted to read them again later, so I really got it. That's when I understood there was other wisdom that was coming by some other way, and all I had to do was pay attention to it. When I decided I would help and start to record some of these sessions with others, it wasn't that I was going to be a talking head and you're going to listen to my story. I wanted others that were having these crazy experiences to have a safe place to come and have these discussions. And that's how all that kind of blossomed. Then you found out after the first couple, people said, well, how'd they go? And I go, I don't know. I didn't listen to them. I go, yeah, you should. Because there's information in there for you too. And that's when I realized that was absolutely true. During these energy exchanges, there's always something meant for me to reveal out of it for myself as well. So thank you. I appreciate these opportunities.
Yes, you're welcome. And also I feel to add that happens to me as well. And I listen to my own classes or sessions afterwards because I'm learning from them as well. Because my mind isn't present. I'm just, in theta wave or alpha theta, and I'm constantly speaking whatever flows. And then I'm listening and learning from whoever is downloading that information through my body, right? And with your case, and to add, half of my classes are fragments from Telos, the books, even though I hadn't read the Telos books, when I was doing those classes. So I had channeled the information before, I've read it, And with you particularly, you're also channeling light codes through your voice and laughter. Not only you're channeling information in a way that the mind is perceiving it, but your voice, the modulations of your voice and the way you laugh is also unlocking light codes. So that's something I want to confirm for you because I've listened to you the past few days and you're doing that.
Thank you.
Okay.
It always takes somebody else to kind of reflect back the things we're meant to know about ourselves. Because until somebody holds up a mirror for us, and they can do that as an observer, there's no judgment. This is just my perception of what I see, Lowell.
Yes.
I'm grateful when that happens because it unlocks the things that have been planted in my head that if I let my ego get a hold of them, I'd start to tell people how gifted and special I was. And although those things are true, that is not, we're not given that information to just brag about it. We're given it to share with others. So my interactions with the Lemurians were meant so that I would tell others that they do freaking exist and that they have
And
things to share with us.
to also encourage them to open to the possibility that they channel that information, they get in touch with these beings and
Oh,
so on. I'm going to translate, but we have to talk about that. Deci el
yes,
spune
we do.
așa că de multe ori se întâmplă să scrie sau să transmită o informație verbal, fără ca el să-și dea seama ce spune, pentru că este în procesul de canalizare a informației, de downloadare a informației și de multe ori își ascultă propriile cursuri sau își citește propriile texte pentru ca și el să învețe din ceea ce a downloadat. Și am spus că și mie mi se întâmplă asta și uneori mă uit la sesiunile sau cursurile mele pentru a învăța și eu din ele, că în timp ce vorbesc mintea mea nu e prezentă și nu magazinez mental și doar auric ceea ce downloadez. Și de multe ori am învățat lucruri noi despre o grămadă de chestii doar ascultându-mă ce am spus în timpul ședințelor. Mai este și chestia că multe mesaje din cărțile Telos sau Viața pe Gea au fost downloadate în timpul cursurilor mele, fără ca eu să fi citit cărțile în avans. După aceea le-am găsit în cărți ca lupuri întregi de mesaje din acestea. Și noi spunem aceste lucruri nu ca să ne lăudăm că ce speciali suntem, el a spus asta, ci eu le spun ca să încurajez oamenii că pot să înțeleagă și ei și să downloadeze și ei să intre în contact cu astfel de ființe și cu astfel de informație și să se deschidă pentru a primi aceste mesaje care sunt posibile și tot timpul noi practic oglindim ceea ce este deja în voi, în toți cei care ne privesc. Și când intri în contact cu o civilizație avansată, spunea el că prima oară s-a simțit și un pic neliniștit, dar și foarte bucuros. Ăsta a fost prima impresie la primul contact cu civilizația din Telos și cumva știa că este pregătit pentru asta, deși nu mai avusese niciodată o experiență similară, se simțea total pregătit și cumva total într-o prezență pentru a asimila informația. I feel to go back to the moment they contacted you. What happened? How did you cross over to their realm? That's the question everybody wants to know. Cum ai trecut în râmul lor?
I won't bore you with the details. If somebody really wants to hear my story, I've got it on lots of YouTubes on my channel. So if you want to hear about the weekend and the things that led up to it, because there's synchronicities in there, for the sake of brevity today, we'll just get to what happened the day when I got there.
Yes.
This area I was telling you about before, that's as high as you can drive, it became my favorite spot to go. And so, regardless of what I was going to do the rest of the day, I would normally start out there. And there was a few days before the day that this actually took place, where I was sitting there at one of 4 picnic tables, and just around noon, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for the rest of the weekend. So straight in front of me is Shasta, and just off to her left is her little sister Shastina. Well, as you see the suns over the top of her, Shastina now has some shadows on her. And some of them look like, to me, from where I'm sitting, these might be cave openings. And so I thought, well, it's not that far from where I'm sitting. It's not on the trail, but I'm thinking from where I am, it'll take me 30 or 40 minutes to get to it, and then I can explore it. So that's what I had decided to do that day.
Mhm.
So the day that I arrived, there were a lot of people there. It's a Sunday, so
Yeah.
it was going to be
Good.
busy.
Mhm.
July, of course, the
Yeah.
weather's perfect to be there. And as is the case there at that elevation, if it's hot in the city, which it can get in the low 90s in Mount Shasta, it's 15 degrees cooler where you are right there. And I love it.
Was it by any chance around the 29th of July?
It was the 26th to be exact.
Well, that's when I got there. That's the
Wow.
date that I got there. Yeah. I left on the 25th, I believe, because I remember it was the Mayan day beyond time. That's why I remember it. And I got there before because on my birthday, July 29th, at 3 p.m., my exact birth date, I was supposed to be in this retreat. So I went there 3 days earlier just to have time to, take the place in and rest after the long flight and so on. So I was sure it was the exact date that you went there. I was getting this while you were speaking. So I just
Well,
wanted to.
think about it. We still want to attach something to a linear time scale
Yeah, but
when we don't understand that experiences really take place over days. And so
yes.
that overlap was probably, as we know, it's not coincidental. None of it is.
Gonna translate, this is important. Deci, spune că el a avut câteva zile înainte drumeții într-un loc pe care a ajuns să-l prefere, cel mai înalt loc unde puteai ajunge cu mașina, și în ziua în care a fost chemat la ei în Telos, s-a dus în același loc și încerca să-și dea seama ce va face pentru restul zilei, în ce zonă va face drumeția. Și văzuse muntele Shasta și muntele Shastina, surioara lui mai mică. Pe Shastina erau niște zone umbrite care păreau a fi peșteri și se gândise el că o să se ducă în peșterile alea pentru restul după amiezii să stea acolo pentru că pe munte era aglomerat. Și l-am întrebat dacă nu cumva a ajuns acolo spre finalul lui iulie în preajma zilei mele de naștere, care este iulie 29, și a zis că el a fost exact pe iulie 26. Și zic exact în aceeași zi eu am ajuns în Telos când am ajuns eu în 2019. Deci este o sincronicitate extraordinară. Eu fusesem invitată la o conferință la Nassim Harmim și am ajuns acolo cu 2 zile sau 3 mai înainte, pe iulie 26, ca să am timp să mă pregătesc, pentru că pe 29 iulie, de ziua mea la ora nașterii mele, începea retreatul lui Nassim. So that's a beautiful synchronicity. I was there exactly 1 year before, so in 2019. Just to mention this. Yeah.
I love to hear anybody that goes there.
Yeah.
Here again is a kind of touchstone. I want to hear your story because when I hear yours first, then I can see how it lines up with my realities and what I experience when I'm there. And it's not crazy. It's extraordinary. The other people who have been there and reported on the things that they were at a level high enough to be able to express. I love it. You and I vibrate at the same levels. We have the same level of empathy that makes it's painful when we hear about the things humans can do to one another, because you and I were here for the planet first. Gaia,
Yes.
she's the priority. We're here to assist her through her ascension. And, if we play our cards right, then our frequency will rise with the rest of sentient life to choose to rise with her. We're here for ourselves first. I know that we're here to assist others, but I'll tell you what my guides told me shortly after the first of this year. And the energy changes to me speak that this is true. First of all, we're here to tend to our own flame. And as much as we want to help others, when we help ourselves first, our light and our aura will speak for itself. And you won't have to say any words, and people will get that there's something different about you, and they'll want to explore it.
Yeah.
Do you see how that's happening at a more accelerated rate now, with the veil being thinned out as much as it is? Hell, I'm having multidimensional experiences in places where I thought physically on the planet, the vibration wasn't right for this to take place, and yet it still is. So that speaks to how thin the veil is.
It's getting thinner and thinner. El spune că deja noi avem experiențe foarte înalte, foarte avansate vibrațional, care înainte nu erau posibile, deoarece acum vălurile dintre dimensiuni și vălurile dintre realități au devenit din ce în ce mai subțiri. Și el știe că și eu și el am venit aici pentru planetă, am venit aici pentru a ajuta umanitatea, am venit aici cu o misiune foarte concretă de a ajuta planeta și suntem focalizați doar pe asta ca și primă prioritate și în același timp este foarte important ca noi să avem grijă de lumina noastră interioară. Și e clar că planeta evoluează acum, dar dacă noi ne jucăm cărțile cum trebuie, vom putea rămâne într-o vibrație înaltă, suficient de înaltă pentru a ajuta întreaga planetă, doar prin propria noastră emanație, doar prin propria noastră stare de bine. De aceea e important ca noi să avem grijă întâi de noi. Chiar dacă unii dintre noi ar fi tentați să-i ajute întâi pe alții, este foarte important să ne ajutăm întâi pe noi, să ne upgradăm întâi pe noi, să ne creștem nouă lumina interioară, care apoi, în mod natural, chiar și fără să spunem nimic, strălucește în jurul nostru și ajută pe ceilalți. That's a very important message, to love ourselves first. And that's the quintessence of an advanced civilization. You see no one playing the victim or playing the savior in an advanced civilization. There's no such thing as saving another, because we, in an advanced civilization, we are instantly recognizing the other's sovereignty and capability to be whole, which here on earth is not very frequently understood. We have there as a natural thing. We recognize another one's sovereignty and we, act accordingly, if you will.
See, that doesn't stick out, in my opinion, with others as much as it's like right in our face real. That people have lost their sovereignty, and when it's suggested that you regain your power, they don't really understand what that means. Well, over time, as you've been focusing on that little screen in your hand, your attention's been taken away from you. And you forget that it's not money and time that's the most important commodity you've got. It's your attention. Why do you think everybody is trying to get it? And when you give it away, more often than not, the agenda on the other end of that intent is not yours or in alignment with it.
Totally. And there's the saying in Qigong, there's the saying that where your energy goes, or attention, where your attention goes, Qi will follow, which means you're wasting your energy every time you put your attention into things that you don't want to grow.
Yeah, well, that's just another way of saying our thoughts become our things. And if you understand the method of manifestation, then you would be really choosy about the things that you give your attention away to.
Totally. And that includes the news and the drama that is being played on the planet, because they never tell you the good stuff that's happening, like us helping each other, or communities helping each other, or creating new projects or technologies that are recycling or cleaning the planet. They only tell you the bad stuff so that they can have fear. I'm going to translate. I'm going to translate, but after that, I suggest we go back to Telos.
Yes.
Which, not physically, though, yet. Maybe later.
Not yet. Yes.
Maybe later tonight. Deci, spune că este foarte important să înțelegem că noi suntem ființe suverane, iar eu am spus că în civilizațiile înalte de unde venim nu există cineva să facă pe victima sau cineva să facă pe salvatorul. Nu există aceste energii pe care noi aici le vehiculăm pe Terra. În alte civilizații avansate noi recunoaștem suveranitatea și capacitatea adică divinitatea din ceilalți și capacitatea lor de a sta pe propriile picioare, și ne comportăm în acord cu acest lucru, adică nu încercăm să punem pe celălalt într-o situație de a fi victimă și noi salvator. Aici pe planetă, spune el, chestia asta nu este foarte bine înțeleasă și nu este înțeles de asemenea principiul că dacă tu dai energie micilor ecrane pe care le ții permanent în mână, cineva se joacă cu energia aia a ta și este cea mai prețioasă investiție, spune el, sau proprietate, energia ta și atenția ta. Iar eu am completat faptul că este și un proverb chinezesc că acolo unde se duce mintea sau atenția, acolo se duce energia ta, deci e foarte important să nu dai energia ta către dramele de la știri, către toate lucrurile rele care sunt povestite în fiecare zi ca să-ți coboare vibrația, că mass media acum nu-ți dă știrile benefice, cum comunitățile se ajută între ele, cum au fost create noi tehnologii pentru a curăța planeta, cum au fost create tehnologii cu energie liberă și așa mai departe, îți spune numai lucrurile dramatice în care tu începi să te temi sau să te îngrijorezi pentru a îți colecta acea energie și a se folosi de ea. Deci trebuie să fim foarte atenți în ce ne dăm energia și atenția noastră. Și am sugerat apoi să ne întoarcem în Telos. So, how is it for you in Telos? You were called there and your encounter is very special, so I would love for you to tell us about it. Even though it's in other interviews as well, I guarantee that there's people
Yeah.
here that either don't understand.
They haven't heard it, and it's
They
important that
haven't
they
heard
do.
it for sure. Yeah, yes.
Yes.
So it's important.
Yes, it is. So I'll take it from where I had parked on that spot,
Yeah.
and I knew the direction I was going to go in. There was a trail that went off to that part of Shastina, but I didn't really see anybody ever taking it. If they moved in that direction, it was to go up what they call Old Ski Bowl Trail, where you could advance your elevation. You want to walk to 10,000 feet? Oh, you can do it easily there. You want to walk to 12,000? You can. That wasn't my intent today. So I went where the trail, nobody else was following it. And then there was a place where I was going to have to go off trail because where I wanted to go, yeah, there wasn't any trails that went to it.
Yes.
Between these spaces is when the realization that when I had been hiking for the 3 weeks prior to this, I had been seeking out energetic places. Unknowing to me, I didn't know why, but every time I got in one of these little zones, my physicality just felt elevated. I guess that's the best way to explain it. And so this day was no different. As I started to get kind of an idea where I was going to go, and I saw a location I was curious about, I started to go off trail and I found these energetic spots. And when I did, there was almost always some crazy kind of designation there. It was either a tree that was coming out of something that was surrounded by rocks that nobody planted that here, but it sure looked like they did. And after I found that first one, I was going to stay there, just kind of take the energy in. Well, then out of my peripheral vision on the left, I saw one that's a little bit higher and kind of the same. It was drawing me to the same spot. So I was going to move there just because I thought the elevation would be different. And when I got to that spot, I noticed one more, and it was against the mountain. There were like 3 rocks that were coming out of it, and they formed this little area you could get into. The boulder on the left-hand side was about inseam high and thin enough that I could get over it. And so I found that area, and that's what I went into first. I turned around, looked back from where I came from, because I could see off in the distance where we were parking the cars. And so, it's my kind of ritual to plant my light there first. I'm a light worker. That's what we do first. And then I sat down to just kind of take it in. And once I sat down, there was no way anybody could have seen where I was. So I'll stop here.
Yes, thank you. Deci el povestește, în scurt eu o să vă spun așa, el caută de obicei când merge în drumeții, caută locurile cu energie mai specială. Și s-a abătut de la poteca pe care mergea toată lumea pe un drum care nu era nici marcat, nici cumva nu era o potecă obișnuită. Și a început să observe aceste locuri energetice. Întâi s-a așezat în unul dintre ele, după aia a văzut un copac puțin mai sus, După aceea am mai văzut încă un loc cu o piatră și s-a așezat în final în locul unde urma să fie invitat în Telos. Tendința lui când ajunge într-un loc energetic este întâi să-și pună el lumina în locul acela. Are o practică energetică prin care transmite lumină, considerându-se că este un lucrător în lumină, el transmite lumină întâi către locul în care a ajuns și apoi se relaxează și pur și simplu așteaptă să primească ce este acolo de primit. Da, ok.
So while I'm sitting there, my back is leaned up against, the mountain. There's dried brush between me and it. And that's it. I was listening to music. My phone was in my back pocket, and so it was putting music through my ear pods. I had just finished eating some grapes, had some water, and when I put those things away, all of a sudden the music stopped. So I sat up so I could get my phone out of my back pocket. When I looked at it, there's no power. So while I'm trying to turn the power back on, I feel a breeze from behind me. And when I turned around, there's a hole where I had been sitting a moment ago. And so when I stood up to take it in, this hole, this opening's probably a foot taller than I am, and I'm 6 feet tall. And I can see that there's kind of a little rise in front of me, and then this goes down. Wherever it is, it goes down. And when my eyes adjusted to the light, it looks like I can see somebody down there on the left-hand side. I would guess it's somebody about my size. And when that reality came into my head, somebody said, "Do you wish to see Telos?"
Deci el s-a așezat cu spatele lipit de o piatră și asculta muzică și a făcut meditația asta așezat acolo pe piatră în timp ce asculta muzică și la un moment dat a luat niște struguri și niște apă și a văzut că nu mai avea muzică pe telefon și s-a plecat să-și scoate telefonul din buzunar. Apoi a văzut că nu mai are baterie la telefon și n-a înțeles cum e posibil să n-aibă baterie de moment ce avusese telefonul încărcat complet când a coborât din mașină. Așa că s-a uitat la telefon stând cumva cu spatele nesprijinit de acea piatră și a simțit o briză care venea din spatele lui, ca o briză rece. Apoi s-a uitat în spate și a observat că nu mai are în spatele lui piatra pe care se sprijinise, ci are un tunel. Și a intrat a simțit să se întoarcă și să intre prin tunelul acela, unde se simțea răcoare, temperatura era puțin diferită de cea din afară și avea o senzație ciudată, dar avea în același timp o stare de siguranță. Iar când s-a uitat, pentru că era o intrare și cumva se ducea o pantă în jos, să spunem, și a observat că la ceva metri distanță, destul de mare distanță de el, era o ființă pe care a putut să o perceapă și credea că e o ființă cam la înălțimea lui, cam de înălțimea lui. Ok, go ahead.
Okay. So I started to make my way down toward this person. And as I got closer, I could tell he was way more than 6 feet tall. As I got closer, he said, "You can call me Alex." And I said, "Well, that'll be easy to remember. That's my son's name." He said, "Yes, we know about your son. Follow me." Now, I should probably tell you a little bit about what this person looked like.
Yes.
He was 8 feet and change.
I should translate the first.
Okay, go ahead.
Spune că s-a apropiat de această ființă și a remarcat că de fapt era mult mai înalt decât se așteptase și mult mai înalt deci 6 picioare. O să calculez și o să vă spun cât înseamnă asta în metri. dar oricum înalt, da? Peste 1,80 de metri, 1,82 metri avea minim. Și s-a apropiat de el și a văzut că este deja altfel decât oamenii și acum o să ne descrie exact cum arăta.
So he had like a white robe or a tunic or whatever you want to call that. But he had these, I want to call them ribbons because I don't know what else to call them. And they were all different colors. So I didn't know if that was some indication of his rank or that was just some kind of Lemurian bling. But his features were flawless. And it would take me months to reflect back upon what I saw, who I saw, and the condition I saw them in. What it told me later is that if we understand the crystalline process our being is going through, these are crystalline forms. Here's a light being in crystalline form. We're still these carbon bodies riding it out. But as you know, cellularly, we have been prepared for this transition. So
that's what we've been doing for years, preparing people for this transition and reminding them of their crystalline bodies, of their energy capacity, of their capacity of being bioluminescent crystals on the inside. That's what we are. That's
yes.
the truth. We are transceivers for light and light codes. We are not here just to eat, drink, and reproduce, even though that's pleasant and we love to do it, but it's also good to be aware of our other capacities. Deci el spune așa că această ființă era de o frumusețe rară, era mult mai înalt decât oamenii, avea o față perfectă, tenul perfect, fără riduri, fără semne de îmbătrânire, fără semne de boală, fără niciun fel de funcție și totul arăta impecabil și hainele lui erau de un alb perfect. Singura trăsătură mai specială în hainele lui, care erau ca o robă albă foarte fluidă așa, erau niște trese sau niște șnururi, cum le văd eu, din culori multicolore, să zicem culorile curcubeului. Și aceste aceste șnururi păreau să fie ca și, s-a gândit el că ar putea să fie o reprezentare a unui rang special sau a unei categorii speciale în civilizația lor. Mintea lui s-a gândit cât de perfectă este figura acestei persoane și cât de perfecte sunt hainele și toate lucrurile care aveau legătură cu el și și-a dat seama că ei au o structură preponderent cristalină a corpului și tot ceea ce este în civilizația lor și atunci clar că ei au această capacitate de a rămâne într-o stare perfectă pentru mulți ani, poate chiar sute de ani. Ok.
As we're making our way down, he's describing more about the council, about the king and queen Ra and Ranamu, and what roles they play, and kind of how the space is governed, and it's not anything like our third dimensional experiences. Really, at that level of awareness, they're way beyond the level of duality that we seem to have to label and move along. And as time went on, in this labeling process, for us to understand context and good and bad, and every lesson we were learning, the extremes just got too extreme. And when I finally had an awareness of what was taking place, I tried to think of just one topic where everybody would kumbaya on the same thing on earth, and I couldn't come up with what that was. No one. That's when it occurred to me that the only thing that was going to set this right was some type of a reset. And so here comes the shift.
Deci spune că în sistemul lor nu există ierarhiile care sunt tradiționale la noi, nu sunt sisteme guvernamentale similare cu ale noastre, nu există o o ierarhizare așa cum noi o percepem în dimensiunea a treia sau acolo unde ne aflăm și că modul de funcționare al societății lor este foarte, foarte diferit de al nostru și mult mai avansat, iar pentru noi este important să găsim puncte comune, să găsim un liant, astfel încât să ne putem unifica. El s-a gândit de multe ori ce ar fi acest punct comun sau această energie a unificării, ce ar putea să ne aducă împreună, dar se pare că singura soluție este o resetare. Well, we've been reset quite a lot lately, and apparently from now on we are ready to share love. Actually, another message that I got in December, you know, the first one was 11/11, the second one, big one, was 12/12, in the 12th of December, where we were said during a group meditation, global group meditation, that now the inhabitants of Earth, and they were meaning the humans, have completed the contracts that weren't based on love-based collaboration with, you know, beings that are, you know, exoplanetary, interplanetary, and so on. So now we're only capable of having love-based collaborations that are based on love, collaborations that are based on mutual respect, mutual help. And that's what the planet will do from now on. So we've stepped into a new stage of evolution. And I said, I can't wait to see how this is going to be implemented here on Earth. You know, they said it's going to be a time of implementation. It's not going to like happen overnight. There's
Correct.
been 3 months since then. We know it's a process because otherwise it would be too abrupt if it would be overnight. We don't want, they kind of said that we don't want that kind of drama anymore, and that it's time for a milder progression from now on, because so many said we are ready, we want this, we want to evolve. Now it's time for a milder progression, not too many shakeups. There's still going to be shakeups, but not that catastrophic view that we've had about our planet evolution. It's going to be based on love now. It's going to be based on harmony. It's going to be a little different than we've imagined.
That's the elevated approach. Look, the next density, fourth dimension, is governed by the law of one. Here's where we're connected to everybody else. And that part of me rides in you and part of you rides in me. When we begin to think of things from that level of unity and compassion and love, that's the foundation that they built their existences on in these higher realms. We're returning to that. Earth was an experiment in duality, and she had to evolve just like every other sentient life in the universe, but we're in a cosmic cycle, and she is rising whether we're in tune with it or not.
Totally.
People like you and I are here to assist others and not to hold up some kind of flag saying, hey, we're the only ones. We're the first ones. We're the way showers that are here to kind of help you negotiate your way through. You're not going to find it the same way I did, but you're going to find it. And you're going to find coincidences between my journey and yours. And in a lot of cases, you and I agreed to cross paths right here to further the purpose.
It's totally an appointment. I know, but since I learned about you, I said I have to meet him and greet him and talk to him and to let people know about his experience. This is my job. I was sure. So there's no doubt about it. It took us half a day to connect and have all this story, you know, for some people.
Well, Jody reached out after I had indicated, I heard from her and we're going to do something. And he said, well, that's exciting. And then he saw the post that was happening today. Well, that didn't take long, did it? No, when things knit together the way that they're supposed to, all the timelines that I am aware of are all accelerated like crazy. And I'm what we're focusing on right now is my experience with my relationship with inner Earth.
Yes.
We haven't touched on extraterrestrial and ultra terrestrial things that have entered my field really in the last year. So when I have really this multi-dimensional framework to put these experiences in kind of a place where I can understand them better so that I can help others do the same thing.
Yes, I'll translate. Um, Spune că planeta deja a evoluat și că e alegerea noastră dacă evoluăm împreună cu ea sau nu. Evident, ființele de lumină care ne contactează încearcă să ne ajute în acest domeniu. Spune că noi ne-am întâlnit pentru a ajuta în acest sens, că ne-am mișcat foarte repede, adică în jumătate de zi ne-am conectat și am stabilit acest interviu. Eu am aflat despre Lowell acum 2 zile, literalmente, și de atunci deja ne înțelegem super pentru această colaborare. Toată lumea este cumva pregătită. Eu am spus că deja nu vom mai trăi dramele la care lumea s-a așteptat, s-a așteptat ca evoluția planetei să fie dramatică și cu multe catastrofe. Noi deja am depășit acel stadiu și acum ni s-a spus pe 12/12 că am încheiat toate colaborările extra și intraterestre care nu erau bazate pe iubire, care nu erau bazate pe sprijin reciproc, inclusiv colaborările între noi care nu sunt bazate pe iubire sau pe sprijin reciproc se vor încheia ca urmare a acestui decret care a fost nou dat pentru planetă. Am spus că abia așteptăm să vedem cum se va implementa, pentru că există un timp de implementare, nu putem să-l implementăm peste noapte pentru că ar fi prea dramatic din nou pentru populație, deci trebuie gradual să facă fiecare aceste schimbări pentru a trece la colaborări bazate exclusiv pe iubire și ajutor reciproc, dar pentru că s-a luat la nivel de masă această decizie că vrem să evoluăm, avem posibilitatea acum să evoluăm mai lin decât ar fi fost plănuit în mod inițial. Și acum o să trecem, asta este în scurt ce am discutat și o să trecem la povestea despre cum a evoluat călătoria lui în interiorul Pământului. So you've been taken there by your friend with long hair and white garments. What happened next?
Okay, so when we reached the bottom of this incline, to me now I know we're going through lava tubes that have been here forever. It certainly makes sense to me. But when we almost reached the bottom of this destination, I could see as we were going through, there was light coming from the other side. When I looked behind me to see where we came from, it was nothing but darkness. So whatever I had come through, that had been closed. Later, I will understand the nature of that particular portal and what a portal really is when it's brought into physicality. I finally traveled through one. I was here once and then I was there. That's the nature of portals. So as I looked at this area in front of us, it was like, I want to call it a staging area because I don't know what else to call it. Across from us, there's 5 more of these tube entrances. And just to our left, when we came in, there's this like 6 by 6 foot by 6 foot platform. And it looks like there's like 2 bucket seats on it. There's no console or anything, but off to the left, there's another one. And when I look to my right, there's another one over here. Well, by the time I started taking all that in, Alex had made his way and sat in the other side and indicated for me to sit next to him. Mm-hmm. And when I did, this thing levitated and off we went into the middle tube.
They were like little buses to take people someplace, right? Like a bus station with platforms.
Well, that's probably a good way to articulate it in terms of people will be able to understand it.
That's how I see it. Deci spune că Alex, așa se numea această ființă care l-a întâmpinat în interiorul Pământului, l-a condus către o zonă unde erau mai multe platforme cu niște scaunele pe ele. Când s-a uitat în urmă, a văzut că intrarea tunelului pe unde pătrunsese era acum închisă și nu știa de ce s-a întâmplat lucrul ăsta, dar între timp, pe măsură ce a înțeles natura portalurilor energetice și a tunelurilor de acest gen, a înțeles că ele se deschid și se închid doar pentru ca cineva în mod specific să pătrundă. Și a fost transportat către această zonă cu platforme. Alex, ghidul din interiorul Pământului, această persoană înaltă, l-a condus către una dintre platforme și s-a așezat pe unul dintre scaune și i-a arătat pe lui să se așeze pe celălalt scaun. Imediat ce s-a așezat pe scaun, această platformă a levitat și a început să se deplaseze cu ei într-o anumită direcție. Ok.
So as we were going through this tube, see there's light coming from the other end of it as well. And as we get closer to the other side, I'm oblivious to what Alex is saying because there's clearly crystals that are embedded into the walls of this lava tube. And as the light comes from the other side, it refracts. And so every inch you move forward, the light refraction changes. It's like you're riding in a kaleidoscope. It was so beautiful, I didn't want it to end. And all of a sudden, it did end because at the end of this, I'm on the first level of Telos. So when we move into this space, he takes us up to a level. You've seen cityscapes in pictures. This is what I'm seeing. The city is, at least this part of it, is circular in orientation. There's a huge white pyramid in the middle of it, and then crystals forms all around it. He's explaining to me what each one of the levels contains. The first one is primarily where most people live. Lots of temples there. There's some administrative, whatever administrative stuff you would need. The second level is more housing.
You were telling me about this kaleidoscopic view.
Yes, the kaleidoscope. We had just made our way through the tunnel and now we're into the city of Telos. So yes. I began to describe what it looked like from like a cityscape perspective because he had elevated us so we could see it that way. But there are a couple of other things that were curious to me. I kept looking up to see where the peak of this was. You couldn't see wherever the top of whatever this cavity was, and yet it was lit like daylight. Now, how? Okay. Even reflecting on it later, I'll look at where these crystal buildings are, and it doesn't cast any shadows. So how do you achieve daylight circumstances when I can't see a stream of daylight coming in here?
True. Deci spune că el călătorea în interiorul pământului și vedea că există o lumină perfectă care se distribuia, se difuza peste tot și nu era nicio umbră ca urmare a acestei lumini. Deci nu era o lumină care face umbre, așa cum e, de exemplu, lumina soarelui. Și nu înțelegea cum poate exista această perfecțiune, că nu se vedea nicio umbră, nu se vedea nicio zonă neluminată cumva, ci totul era perfect luminat și perfect armonios. Okay.
It's not hard to understand crystal technology. None of that occurs to you at the time, but later on you'll understand that they've mastered the ability for crystals to hold light. And how long in our little timeline minds, how long that will work that way until it's no longer capable of holding that signal, but it's longer than we ever have to worry about.
Nu este greu să înțelegem tehnologia cristalelor și așa că pentru noi este cumva partea care o să urmeze în curând pe planetă. Dar întrebarea este cât mai durează până ajungem acolo.
Of all of it, other than the temple, the pyramid that was in the middle, and it had a capstone, which later on it'll explain the nature of the attire Alex was wearing that day.
Okay. That's interesting to know.
There was a round crystal building that I'll come back to refer to here in a moment, because it was one of the other things that just stood out and I wasn't sure why I noticed it when I did. but this capstone was given to them by Venus. And later on, I will learn from Diane Robbins, who wrote a lot of those Telos and Hollow Earth books. She became a good friend, lives in Shasta. I've had the opportunity to sit and share things with her many times. Later, she'll tell me that there was something that she never published in any of her books. And based on the day of the week, that color of the capstone changes. It reflects something that then affects everybody else. Well, it was white the day I was there, so I didn't make anything of it. White is Sunday. So the population attires themselves in white, and that's kind of the theme of the day. And there's a vibration that comes along with that light color that influences their life, and they understand how to harness it.
Yes, you know what? When I'm having specific conferences, I'm told to wear specific garments. And it has to be a certain color. And when I want to, in the beginning, because I didn't know all about it, when I wanted to change it, I was told, no, this is the frequency you are meant to hold. That's exactly what you are saying. Deci el ne spune că ei au în orașul lor, în mijloc, au o piramidă imensă, cam de mărimile piramidei lui Cheops sau mai mare, care are acel vârf și el își schimbă culoarea. E un vârf dintr-un material special care își schimbă culoarea. Au ajuns pe o platformă de unde putea să observe tot orașul și vedea acel vârf al piramidei și piramida întreagă care emana lumină. Și a aflat apoi de la prietena sa din Mount Shasta, pe care o cheamă Diane Robbins și care a scris multe cărți despre Telos, o să le găsim și noi, a aflat că această piramidă are vârful de pe o altă planetă. A fost dăruit cetățenilor din Telos de cei de pe planeta Venus. Și acest vârf își schimbă culoarea în funcție de zi, iar locuitorii din Telos își schimbă ținutele în funcție de culoarea pe care o are vârful piramidei, pentru că ei se sintonizează ca frecvență cu acest vârf al piramidei și intră în rezonanță. Și am explicat că are perfectă dreptate, pentru că și eu când am anumite conferințe sunt ghidată anume să iau o anumită culoare pe mine, o anumită ținută într-o anumită culoare, iar la început, când nu prea știam despre ce e vorba, dădeam eu să mă schimb așa ca fetele, că aveam o anumită imagine cum aș vrea să arăt, și mi se spunea insistent că nu, trebuie să porți această culoare pentru că trebuie să emani această frecvență în mod specific. Deci pentru cei din Telos, emanarea unei anumite frecvențe cu ajutorul culorii hainelor este ceva absolut normal și sintonizarea frecvenței tale cu restul orașului iarăși e ceva absolut normal. So the capstone was white, deci vârful era alb în ziua în care a venit el, pentru că era ziua de duminică, Sun Day, ziua soarelui. Very
Correct.
interesting. Everybody was dressed in white, you mean?
Yes. If it would have been Wednesday, it would have been emerald or green. Had it been Saturday, it would have been violet. Yes, I'd like to go back and experience those days and see what that phenomenon looks like. But I digress. Let's go back. Yes. So from here, this hovercraft lowered itself because he's going to take me to what turns out to be another level. We're going to go down to the third level. But before we do, we're down to like a height where everybody is taller than I am for certain. But I can see pockets of 2 people over there and 3 people over there. And as we go by them, there were 5 or 6 people that I was able to make eye contact as we passed by. And something inside of me said, I know who they are. And they knew who I was. Yeah. None of that will make sense while this is taking place. So the next thing I know, we're on the 3rd level. And this is where the hydroponic gardens and some more of that exists. So he's showing me like 7 acres of it and explains that this feeds the entire population. So let me try and put that into perspective first. Because what I thought I knew about the conditions and the number of Lemurians that made it during the period where it sunk. Preparations had been made for 2,000,000, 25,000 Lemurians made it in the end. And over the course of time, that number grew to what Diane Robbins explained to me was like 1.2 million. So let's just keep putting this into perspective, because this little crop over here is going to feed all of them, even though it may perpetuate itself, quickly. What I know as of last year is, and I feel the number is right, between the Lemurians on the surface, under the surface, there are 4.8 million of us here, all finding one another again, understanding that the time to come home is going to be soon. And we're going to be able to split our time because the conditions vibration will be right on the surface and under the surface if we choose.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to
Yes.
translate so that I don't forget the numbers, because there's many numbers you've said. Spune că a avut posibilitatea să viziteze 3 nivele ale orașului. Pe un nivel erau clădirile acestea, pe un alt nivel erau oamenii care se plimbau și toți erau îmbrăcați în alb și arătau foarte tineri și foarte sănătoși. Și erau îmbrăcați în alb pentru că era ziua cu hainele albe care se asortau cu vârful piramidei albe, iar la un alt nivel erau recoltele. Și recoltele pe care le produceau pentru a hrăni populația. Populația este exclusiv vegetariană, deci mănâncă doar fructe și legume, și a observat că avea, deci 7 acri înseamnă 2 hectare 800, aproape 3 hectare de teren pe care ei cultivau recoltele pentru întreaga populație din acea zonă. Și și-a făcut un calcul că nu înțelegea cum e posibil ca toți oamenii din zona respectivă să mănânce culturi de doar 2-3 hectare de pământ. Și a văzut că inițial, în organizarea inițială, știa că erau pregătite zone din interiorul pământului pentru aproximativ 2 milioane de ființe. Când s-au dus lemurienii în interiorul pământului, pregătirile fusese făcute pentru 2 milioane de ființe. În final, doar 1.200.000 se pare că ar fi ajuns. E o discuție aici referitor la aceste numere, dar oricum, 1.200.000 de oameni să se hrănească de pe doar 3 hectare de pământ, i s-a părut lui foarte, foarte ciudat. Cum se pot hrăni în felul ăsta și să aibă hrană în mod constant? Și acum o să ne spună cum e posibil. Go ahead.
Well, the third dimensional part of me is trying to make sense of how that food right there feeds all of the ones that you told me are here. And it'll be later that the importance of understanding their form, that crystalline form, and what it takes. Here's what I understand. They don't eat because they need to eat. Their form, as you understand, because you are the first one I've heard really talking and promoting the idea of prana and people that live on solar energy, because we do, whether we think about it because we get it through the food we eat, regardless of all that. I'm preaching to the choir, I know that, but here's where it's really important. They eat because they enjoy it, not because they have to. Their physicality is, they don't have to worry about where the closest bathroom when this is over. Their metabolism works entirely different in ways we don't understand yet. But they are vegetarian in what they do take in, and they do it for pleasure. This is part of their physical experience on the planet.
And mine.
Yes.
And mine. And I've had colleagues the same. And this book, the Pranic World book, explains the science of how our cells are working, how we're actually producing ATP by just moving, not by eating. ATP being adenosine triphosphate, the energy that's nourishing our cells, and it's naturally produced by our mitochondria. The longer we fast, the more ATP we produce. It's the other way around than we actually think, because we're producing melatonin, and that's stimulating or regulating the production of ATP. So it's all science-based. It's no woo that we've researched and we've learned about. And there's so many people now that I've met that are they are on liquids, no needing physical food for 25 or 30 years. Imagine being on this planet and not eating for 30 years. Unless you want to taste something and then you can even spit it out, or just, you don't need it. And I've had experience when I'm eating and the food is no longer in my body once it gets there. It just combusts itself into somewhere. I've had massage done on my belly once because I was, worried that, the food was coming in, not coming out. And somebody said, "There's nothing in your, in your organs. I can't find this food to move it around. You've taken it somewhere else." And that now
That's
makes,
another form of, you understand how to transform that energy so that
yeah,
that's, I know for a lot of
this,
people, they'll try and figure out what the hell I just said. But those of us that
yeah.
understand our mechanisms, the way it truly works, that'll make sense to them.
Yes, yes, we explain a lot of that in our conferences, but the point is, if I eat something out of my personal well, it will probably stay in my body and it will even disrupt my balance. But if I eat something that I'm guided to eat, either to balance something or to make contact with someone or to synchronize my frequency with a group, that energy is gone. I don't feel it in my belly, and it's very nice to feel that way because it's very light. It's nice. Sometimes I feel really heavy when I eat just for, curiosity. It's really heavy in my body. It's different than, yeah. It's another talk, this one.
It is, but I want to underscore what you were saying a little bit, because during that time I was finishing my 3D professional life.
Mm.
I weighed almost 213 pounds, and that's not hard on a 6 foot frame to think about living and eating the food that you find in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now, somehow, after I left, I craved things differently. It was like I kind of let it over to the universe when I didn't have to prepare meals for my family and think that three things had to be on the plate. I just ate the way I felt I wanted to eat. And within a 6 month period, I lost 35 pounds and went somewhere else. My joints felt like they were
Yeah,
renewed. Everything was like it was refreshed, restored, regenerated. I don't know how I did there because it wasn't with any intent, but nonetheless, it happened.
naturally. It's a natural way when you listen to your body. I'll just translate. Deci el spune că odată ce noi înțelegem natura cristalină a corpurilor noastre, faptul că noi suntem compuși din cristale în mod special, putem înțelege faptul că acești oameni din civilizația aceasta avansată se hrănesc doar pentru plăcere și nu pentru nevoie sau necesitate. Și că hrana lor nu produce deșeuri, adică ei odată ce ingerează această hrană, nu e nevoie să o scoată din corp sub formă de deșeuri. Deci nu mai au această necesitate și atunci procesul lor de hrănire este mult mai simplu decât al nostru și, cum am zis, nu e o necesitate, ci o plăcere. Și că de aceea, practic, 2 hectare de pământ pot hrăni, sau 3 hectare de pământ pot hrăni o populație atât de mare, pentru că ei mănâncă ocazional și doar atunci când vor să încerce ceva. Și am explicat că am avut experiența asta de multe ori. Dacă mănânc din curiozitate ceva, atunci corpul meu se simte greu și, mă rog, hrana trebuie practic rezultă deșeuri de pe urma acelui consum de hrană. Dacă mănânc atunci când sunt ghidată să mănânc ceva pentru că trebuie să împărtășesc o energie cu o persoană sau cu un grup, să-mi sintonizez frecvența sau să mă conectez cu o anumită țară, atunci hrana pe care o ingerez pur și simplu parcă dispare din corp, nici măcar nu o simt în corp. Și cineva odată mi-a făcut masaj pe la început, îmi făcea masaj abdominal pentru că nu știam din ce cauză nu a fost necesar să merg la baie câteva zile după ce am mâncat o porție mică de mâncare și zic, cred că nu este în regulă ceva sau ceva e blocat. Și când mi-a făcut masaj abdominal a zis, tu nu ai acea hrană în corp. Nu o găsesc nicăieri, nu este în colonul tău nimic și nu este hrană în corpul tău. Și de atunci de multe ori m-am simțit ca și cum S-a făcut o combustie și s-a dus undeva hrana aceea și nu o simt în corpul meu, le și spun prietenilor că nici nu simt că am mâncat ceva, nu știu unde s-a dus, dar dacă mănânc de curiozitate sau gust lucruri de curiozitate, atunci se simte că e ceva greu în corp și mă simt greoaie și e diferit. Iar el a spus că după ce a renunțat să mai gătească pentru familie și a locuit în munți acolo unde a stat el, a pierdut foarte multe kilograme pentru că a început să mănânce într-un mod diferit, nu a mai pus pe farfurie lucrurile cu care era obișnuit să mănânce în familie și a pierdut mult în greutate și încheieturile lui și tot corpul lui s-au simțit foarte diferit și foarte ușor și nici nu înțelege cum a putut pierde în greutate atât de rapid, dar s-a petrecut asta în mod natural. Yes, when we naturally listen to our body and to our higher frequency, we have a total different system of nourishment and our body is much healthier. It's true.
We just don't know what we don't know. And I don't, there was no awareness I had of my current condition versus an ideal condition. So it wasn't like I wished I felt that way. It just, when you give yourself over to the energy that's coming at you, you'll find your own little stasis.
Yes, perfect balance.
Yes.
How was it to meet the Telosians, and what was your experience with them in talking to them or relating to them?
Well, that's next. So now that we've finished looking at the hydroponic gardens, we make our way back up to the first level. And if you remember, I made reference to this little building that got my attention, round building. This is where we go next. It's the council chambers, I will learn. And the building is made of these crystal panels that, turn it into like this round form. But the entryway is wide open. It's the equivalent of what we would think of as like French doors. But curiously, etched into this panel on this side and this panel on the other side, I've seen these illustrations somewhere else before. They look like light codes to me. And I will have seen them the first day. Well, actually, it would have been the third day that I actually arrived in Shasta. One of those places I visited is a place called Blue Star Child Gallery. Haruko, this little Japanese lady, is a wonder, and she illustrates these things. The day that I first went into her shop, I didn't step all the way in, but as I was leaving, I saw these 3-foot wide by 10-foot wide things on the wall, and there were lots of them that she had illustrated by hand, perfectly symmetrical, without rulers or curvature tools. They were amazing.
Yeah.
They're all light codes that she has been channeled to illustrate. And then when you see her lovely stuff over here with rabbits, that's a whole nother world she gets into. But anyway, these were her illustrations. And when I said, Alex, these look familiar to me, he goes, yeah, those are Haruko's, and they're accurate. That's why we've etched them here. So as we move into the space, you see in the middle, there's a round wooden table. It's really the only wood I've seen here at all so far, with 13 chairs around it. And there's a lot of other things I can express about crystals I saw buried here and there in the wood and whatnot. But what was more noticeable is the energy that you got into in this space. Think of the warmest, most meaningful hug you've ever received. And when you stepped into the space, you felt that sensation like pushing into your heart core the whole time you're in here. Yeah. And to me, I started giggling to myself. So if this is a place where we have meetings, here's how I soften you up before the meeting begins.
You know what happens? Since I've seen the video with you, I kept having in the center of my heart chakra like this, like there's someone pushing there. Or drilling. I kept for 2 days I've had this sensation, especially after I heard about those light codes. It seems I've connected to them and to the space, of course, because I've been there before in my ethereal. And my heart chakra is being worked on. So somebody's like, there's some energy like pushing to my heart center and I can feel it sometimes, and it's like a little drilling, like zzz, you can open more. And
That's a really good way to explain it.
no, I feel that's the message. I mean, I can interpret what's happening to my body, and that's the message. Like, this is the button we push, for you to open it a little bit more. I'll translate.
We're all trying to put it in physical terms that we can understand. That's been my endeavor the whole time, is when you have these experiences and they're meant to be shared, how do you put it in terms that other people can understand?
Words, yes, yes. Deci el spune așa că a mers din nou după ce au vizitat grădinile și a avut aceste curiozități legate de grădinile interioare, au mers din nou la etajul unde erau clădirile. A spus că mulți oameni pe care i-a întâlnit, ei s-au părut familiari și de câte ori se întâlnea ochi în ochi cu ei, avea această senzație de familiaritate și de ca și cum se cunosc de mult timp. Și Alex, ghidul lui, l-a dus către o clădire pe care observase și înainte, o clădire în formă sferică, cumva, care se pare că era sala de consiliu a acestei civilizații. Și a intrat acolo, a văzut o masă rotundă cu 13 locuri, era singura porțiune de lemn pe care a găsit-o, singura construcție de lemn pe care a găsit-o în toată zona, tot ce a văzut era din cristal. Și această masă de lemn avea și ea cristale din loc în loc inserate în acest lemn și pe măsură ce intrau în această zonă, a văzut pe pereți niște, să le spunem, cum sunt acele suluri japoneze, cum să exprim, cu niște desene, cu niște coduri de lumină. Și-a dat seama că aceste desene le văzuse și la suprafață în Mount Shasta, în oraș, într-un magazin a unei persoane de origine japoneză, care face aceste desene de o înălțime foarte mare și le construiește perfect, fără instrumente, fără icher, fără riglă, fără nimic, doar de mână, și le colorează tot de mână. Ia foarte mult timp să le creeze, dar sunt coduri de lumină pe care le găsise într-un magazin care se numea Blue Star Child. Și când le-a revăzut aici în interiorul pământului, s-a uitat la Alex, la ghidul lui, și i-a spus: "Dar mie astea îmi par cunoscute." Și Alex i-a zis: "Da, da, da, sunt lucrările lui Haruko, noi le-am adus, le-am pus și aici la noi pentru că ni se par foarte bune, foarte benefice prin ceea ce transmit, ca și coduri de lumină." Deci ea downloadase niște coduri de lumină pe care le aveau și ei în interiorul pământului. Și că mai spune el că atunci când stătea în această sală și mai ales când privea acele coduri de lumină, avea așa ca o presiune în chakra inimii, ca și cum poți să-ți imaginezi cea mai profundă și importantă îmbrățișare pe care ai simțit-o vreodată, care te topește așa în inimă. Și s-a gândit el, a chicotit așa și s-a gândit: e fain că pune energia asta în sala Consiliului ca să-i pregătească pe oameni să spună da la orice decizie trebuie luată acolo. S-a gândit așa cu mintea umană. Iar eu i-am spus că de când m-am conectat cu locul ăsta, pentru că am mai auzit descrierea sălii respective și în altă conferință a lui, de când m-am conectat cu acele coduri de lumină despre care el vorbește, am din timp în timp așa ca o presiune în centrul chakrei inimii, ca și cum cineva sondează acolo, forează să mai deschidă încă un pic. Asta îi povesteam. Ok, I've managed to translate it all.
Bless your heart. Well, okay. So we're in the room, and now that I'm acclimating myself to the space, 5 more beings make their way into the room. I can tell that according to pictures I've seen, and they do not do him justice, the being in the middle, who's taller than the rest of them, this is a Dhamma. And then the other 2 that flanked him on either side, those were females. So they invited me to take a spot. 3 of them sat on this side, 3 of them sat on this side. And then they began to, introduce themselves. They told me what their name was and a little bit about who they were and what role they played. And to be honest, it was a blur. I remember
Yeah.
who Alex was because he brought me here. I know who Adama is according to what I've heard about him before. And the first female that spoke, I remember her name was Shyama, because from here on, she seemed to chair the meeting. She was the one who spoke, and now I'm going to learn, why I was invited in. First of all, they had come to the same conclusion about the timing of the shift and how imminent it was, and that their interest, once that vibrational match takes place, is they're very interested in assimilating back onto the surface and sharing the technologies that they've got with the rest of us. But until vibrations are such, they're going to stay exactly where they are, and for reasons that I can fully understand. They don't want their energy levels to be disturbed, and they're not about to let it drop into another dimension by interactions with us. So I was thrilled to hear that. This is the end of July 2020. And everything that I had read and digested up to that point gave every indication to me that winter solstice in 2020, here it comes. That time is finally getting here. And so I was thrilled to hear the information. The fact that then I understood the circumstances and their interest. Now I found out why it was me. That there were three things that came. First, I had already demonstrated that I can hold fifth dimensional consciousness. So I understand this perspective of things. Two, they said they knew I was the protector of Gaia. Now, what that meant to me, I had been in an ayahuasca journey in February of 2018 and was told by Mother Ayahuasca that's who I was. How that came up in a conversation 6 years, 4 years later? 4 years later, blew me away because I had not shared that with anybody. And then the third reason was that they knew that all this was imminent, and they wanted emissaries on the surface to assist with that process in reconnecting surface and below. And they were interested in that time if I would be interested in it. Now, while I'm here, I have no clue whatsoever. I am already a Lemurian, and I've agreed to all these terms before, but in my wherewithal and where I was in this incarnation, I was unaware of any of that until these triggers came along to remind me. So at some point, Adama finally said, yes, the entire council is unanimous in this idea, and that we understand this is going to take place, and that we would hope that you would accept our invitation to be a surface emissary on our behalf. All I got to stutter out, because I hadn't said a word through any of this. I just wanted to take it all in so that I could record it in my little head. And, you get these thoughts of why me, first of all, and am I worthy? And, erase that. Don't say those things. Just say it would be my honor. And as soon as I uttered those words, this meeting was over. They bowed and they were off and we were finished.
Yeah, let's translate, and
Yes.
I have some, I have questions now, but it's nice. Deci el spune așa că au venit în cameră după ce el a luat contact cu aceste coduri de lumină și a început să îi se deschidă chakra inimii. Au venit în cameră 5 ființe, 4 ființe de gen feminin și o ființă de gen masculin, să le spunem așa. Cel de gen masculin era mult mai înalt decât fetele. S-au așezat de-a stânga și de-a dreapta lui, 2 și 2 dintre persoanele de gen feminin, și în persoana de gen masculin și-o dat seama că este Adama, care este preotul sau liderul principal al orașului Telos. Ei au un rege și o regină în orașul Telos, dar Adama este liderul, nu lider, că ei nu au această ierarhie, dar preotul, cel care cumva este pe un pe un alt nivel de vibrație și de preoție sacră acolo. Și au început să discute cu el și să se prezinte fiecare spunându-și numele și alte detalii despre ei. El nu a reușit să rețină mai nimic pentru că era o frecvență foarte înaltă și mintea lui nu recepționa, dar a recepționat doar numele primei femei care s-a prezentat și care a părut să fie președinta Consiliului sau cea care a guvernat întâlnirea și al cărei nume era Shiama, iar celălalt l-a recunoscut ca fiind Adama și s-a confirmat că este Adama, restul nu a mai reținut nimic despre nimeni. Ce a reținut este că ei au spus că această schimbare pe planetă este iminentă, este foarte important să se întâmple acum, este foarte important să ne pregătim și ei sunt de acord că până la solstițiul de iarnă, care a fost în 2019, 2020, aveau să se petreacă schimbări radicale pe planetă și ele au avut loc de altfel și l-au întrebat dacă ar fi de acord să fie emisarul lor la suprafață, adică printre pământeni, să transmită informațiile de la ei către pământeni. Ei au spus că l-au ales din 3 motive. Unul, că a demonstrat de-a lungul anilor că poate susține sau menține o frecvență de dimensiunea a 5-a și că o poate încorpora, să zicem așa. Al doilea motiv este că este printre protectorii Pământului și el avusese o meditație profundă cu 4 ani înainte și i s-a revelat acest lucru, nu a înțeles ce înseamnă, iar oamenii, ființele acestea din Telos i-au reamintit despre acest lucru, că el este un protector al Pământului și de aceea a fost ales. What was the third reason? Forgive me to ask. So 3 reasons. One, your frequency, your ability to hold fifth dimensional frequency. Second, you're the protector of the earth. And third,
I already knew the Lemurians, so I was going to be asked to be their emissary.
Yes, you are.
Or one of them.
You are one of them, yeah. One of us, so to speak. Și al treilea motiv este că este unul dintre lemurieni, unul dintre membrii acestei civilizații și ca atare este firesc să îi se ceară să fie emisarul nostru la suprafața planetei și cam asta a fost toată discuția. Din momentul în care el a spus da, este de acord și este onorat, practic, deși îi veneau o mulțime de gânduri că poate nu e meritul lui, că poate nu va fi suficient de bun să facă asta și tot așa, și a venit și intuiția că nu e cazul să spună nimic din toate chestiile alea și tot ce a spus este că ar fi onorat și că s-ar bucura să facă asta. Din momentul ăla, Adam a spus că și el ar fi și ei sunt onorați să-l aibă ca emisar și s-a încheiat întâlnirea. A fost scurt și cuprinzător. Alright. What happened next? Were you at all overwhelmed by their presence, or did it seem like a familiarity?
It just seemed so natural to me
It
that
did.
you would have thought that something that extraordinary would have raised my anxiety level or some physical trigger. It wasn't. It just, I felt so at peace in that space. It was the same reason why I seek out these places in nature to find solace and silence, because I know I can connect to greater things. I just found myself in that environment, surrounded by beings that are here.
Yeah. So it was a sense of familiarity.
Absolutely.
Am întrebat dacă s-a simțit vreun pic copleșit de prezența unor astfel de ființe și a zis că s-a simțit foarte natural și relaxat și n-a avut nicio teamă și s-a simțit foarte familiar cu ei, în același mod în care se simte în natură atunci când caută solitudinea și liniștea. Nu a avut nicio anxietate. I'm mainly asking that because of the propaganda that is made now on the planet, where we are educated that yes, there are these beings, yes, they are existing, but they are dangerous and we should be afraid. So my question is specific to that direction because we know that and as I speak, my heart is vibrating in that point now, because we know we shouldn't be afraid, and we know we are greeted with love, and we're only yet to hold the capacity of love that they are holding. We're yet to learn it, so there's nothing to be afraid, unless, are we loving enough? That's the only question we could ask ourselves.
Well, when you say are we loving enough, I equate that with our level of vibration. I mean, is it high enough for us to experience them? That's really the moniker. So if you allow yourself to let that fear of what you've heard from the third dimensional white noise, if you allow that in, there's a chance that your vibration is going to drop. I've heard more often than not when people have had, an extraordinary experience, whether it was a light being that was in their vicinity and they saw it and then all of a sudden it didn't. Well, when they explained the circumstances and went, yeah, I thought I saw this thing in my hand, it was moving. And then, I like freaked out and it wasn't there. Exactly.
Yeah.
What happened? Your vibration dropped because you let yourself get freaked out. And all of a sudden, you lost your ability to see things in that higher realm because you let yourself drop. That's exactly what's happening. Once you can get control of that, and it's a hard thing to understand all the crap going on around us and not letting that into your field. When you can tune that out, then you can focus on the desired outcome.
Yes. Am întrebat, am spus de fapt că în mod firesc noi ne simțim relaxați în preajma unor astfel de ființe, iar întrebarea mea era punctată special pentru a face loc acestui răspuns, pentru că noi în media suntem educați să ne temem de aceste ființe. Acum ni se spune că da, ele există, ni se spune că da, vin printre noi, dar suntem educați să ne temem de ele și suntem educați eventual să le atacăm, ceea ce este complet utopic, dat fiind faptul că singura teamă sau gând al nostru este să ne întrebăm dacă avem suficientă iubire. Pentru că, practic, capacitatea de a iubi a acestor ființe este dincolo de orice înțelegere pe care noi o putem avea, iar oamenii încă învață nivelul acela de iubire, încă învață nivelul acela de vibrație, iar el spune că da, nivelul de iubire este de fapt nivelul de vibrație, cât de înaltă e vibrația ta, și de multe ori oamenii spun, mi s-a părut că am văzut o ființă de lumină sau ceva, o ființă din alt plan, dar m-am speriat și când m-am uitat mai atent nu mai era. Păi nu, ea era tot acolo, dar nu ai mai văzut-o pentru că te-ai speriat și ți-a coborât vibrația. De câte ori ne permitem, ne îngăduim să ne coborâm vibrația, nu mai putem fi deschiși către aceste dimensiuni superioare care ni se arată. Yes. How do you hold your high vibration? Because in that space it was naturally lifted by all conditions, like the crystals, the presence of them supporting you to hold the high vibration, to not freak out, so to speak, and also your training, because you were trained already to meditate. But maybe there's procedures that you have every day, like rituals or small activities that keep your vibration in a state where you can tune into those places. What are those?
I'll answer that, and then I should finish the Telos trip because we're almost done and we're almost out. But I want to answer that question. When somebody first asked me that, I can't tell you how I keep my vibration high, but you did touch on some clues there. I'll get this thought around again. You have to be able to see things objectively and understand that, first of all, we are incarnated souls.
Yes.
So we have clearly had past lives that we can go back and reflect on. Now, no one told us any of that before. Certainly wasn't taught to us in school. So where were we going to come by that information? And it wasn't like we were the only ones. There seemed to be some other people around us that had the same sensations. And there's some energy that I feel beyond my 5 senses I'm used to that tells me that there's something else I'm curious about. It's got higher intelligence, if you want to see it that way. And I just want to know what it is. But in order to do that, One way is you talked about my meditative process. That's probably the way that my being now is in a constant meditative state. And, I heard about people that were that way earlier, but I never thought I'd achieve it. Here's what happens. It's just a practice. When you started out, and I chose transcendental meditation as the one that worked for me, once after a few months, I would do that pattern of twice daily. It worked for me and I got results.
Mhm.
Then it just became almost timing during the course of the day that the only time I had to do it was first thing in the morning. So I repeat that. And the first 20 minutes of every day I'm awake starts out in a meditative state. So here's my nature. As time went on, it just became who my whole day turned out to be because I could carry that state from first thing in the morning throughout my entire day.
Yes.
You just had to learn how to tune out all the other white noise while you were in this space. And if you could, wow, did multidimensional phenomenon open itself up for you to understand and see.
Yes, totally. That's my experience too. And the more we open up to it, the more we draw more of it to us. I mean, it's like the law of attraction. Seek and ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. The more you seek for it, and the more you not necessarily seek but drop into that silent space, the more you dwell into it, and or find your way back to it naturally when you're taken out of it. L-am întrebat care este procedura lui de a își menține o vibrație înaltă, ce exerciții face în fiecare zi sau ce practici are în fiecare zi pentru a menține această vibrație, pentru că ea are legătură și cu capacitatea lui de a vedea aceste locuri energetice și de a percepe aceste ființe de lumină. Cu cât ai vibrația mai înaltă și mai stabilizată într-o frecvență înaltă, cu atât le percepi cu mai multă ușurință și claritate. Și a spus că cea mai frecventă practică a lui este meditația, are 20 de minute de meditație minimum în fiecare zi, așa și începe ziua. Și a introdus mai nou de 2 ori pe zi această procedură, folosește meditația transcendentală și asta îi menține o frecvență înaltă, dar pe parcurs înveți să menții starea asta pe parcursul întregii zile, adică ea devine natura ta și pe măsură ce avansezi în această procedură meditativă, o repliezi pe toate momentele zilei. Am spus că și eu și atunci devii foarte deschis și senzitiv, dat tot ceea ce este în jurul tău și percepi toate aceste tărâmuri invizibile sau ființe invizibile inițial. La fel am spus că și în cazurile experienței mele, cu cât stai mai mult și în această stare de a canaliza practic informația și de a o percepe în stare pură cumva și a curge prin tine în mod natural. So, last part about Telos. What do you feel to
Yes,
share?
let's wrap up the
Because
visit.
we
So from here, we leave. I leave with Alex. We get back on this little hovercraft and we find our way back to the staging area. And when we get back there, now is the time. I have 2 questions. And the first question is, can I tell anybody about this? And he kind of laughed and he said, you can tell anybody you want. It's not like they're going to find their way in here without assistance because you had to. So you can tell everybody you want to, and we wish that you would. And the second was, do I get to come back? And his answer was brief. Yes, you'll get to come back before the shift.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't give me any more clarity on it than that, but
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to going back.
Me too. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you miss it?
For a long time, I wanted to go back. I just wanted to experience it again so I could validate whatever the hell happened to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to be until May, the following May, I'd get to go back and actually revisit the space.
Okay.
We'll pick up on that another time because it was the next multidimensional experience I was going to have. And then there was a string of things that were going to occur. It wasn't just my connection with Telos and the Lemurians there, which I was happy with. I wanted to nurture that.
Yes,
One of
but
the things that was going to come really clear to me is that when you made reference to Radu Sinamar books and other things and references in Inner Earth, part of my job is to help others understand that Telos is pretty well known, widely known. You know, people, a lot of people resonate with the Lemurians. Here's what they fail to realize: there are other inner Earth cities that are
absolutely.
here now. And if you really look at the entirety of the things that I've been led to understand, there are over 120 of them. Some of
Oh,
them are
yeah.
Lemurian, some Atlantean, some are things we are not used to seeing yet, but they're all here and they're benevolent and they live in higher dimensions waiting for us to get our shit together.
Yes, and there's the Agartha network that many have referred to, the Agartha network that holds at least 120 cities, as you've mentioned. And I loved your graphic imagery of 9 of them that I've seen last night. And because we have to tell the audience that you have created like a graphic imagery of some of the cities you've been in touch with, and it's really accurate for some that I've also seen, like for example the Apelos and some other city in below Italy. You've referred to a specific mountain, but there's other places where there's similar cities to that one, and they all
Yes.
look similar to. Yeah, I've seen it, for example, under Venice, under the waters of Venice. I've seen similar cities to the one you've described, and they're really accurate. I mean, it took me on a journey, honestly. I've been there non-physically, but like you, I can't wait to get there physically, and it's a constant missing. Like I'm missing one of my homes, and
Yes. It's so
I
comfortable there. Look, I like elemental areas. So
yes.
when you see that type of thing, you just want to dive into the picture.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, and you actually do. I did a lot of diving last night by watching it and also listening to the music. It's easy for me to transgress between these veils, and but I look forward to go there. I hereby request to go there with my body because I need a regenerative journey to be able to now continue in the next cycle here on Earth. I had 2 cycles that I've completed and been allowed to exit if I chosen to. This is the third one, therefore, whenever they're ready, I'm ready to make a trip. I'm translating. Spune că s-a întors pe platforma principală după ce au încheiat această vizită și consiliu. S-a întors pe platforma principală și pe unde intraseră și a avut 2 întrebări pentru Alex. O întrebare a fost dacă poate să împărtășească cu alții această experiență, și Alex i-a spus că poate să împărtășească cu oricine, pentru că practic de aceea și au dat cumva această experiență. Și a doua întrebare a fost când se va întoarce acolo, și i-au spus că se va întoarce în curând, înainte de această transformare planetară generală, îi se va permite din nou să meargă acolo. Iar apoi am discutat despre faptul că ne este dor de locul respectiv. El a mai avut niște experiențe ulterioare intradimensionale despre care o să ne povestească într-o următoare discuție, dar a rămas cu această stare de dor și chiar cu dorința de a se întoarce pentru a-și confirma anumite lucruri, pentru a intra mai în profunzime în observarea anumitor lucruri. Și i-am spus că și pentru mine este un dor continuu de o casă pe care o am într-o altă zonă, această zonă a orașelor interioare, pentru că o parte din conștiința mea este încarnată în acea civilizație, Și abia aștept să merg din nou acolo, inclusiv cu corpul meu fizic. De multe ori am fost în non-fizic, în mod energetic, dar am mai multă claritate și mai multă acuratețe atunci când mergi și cu corpul fizic sau ești complet prezent acolo, să spunem așa. Și abia aștept înainte de această transformare generală și înainte ca eu să închei încă un ciclu aici, abia aștept să merg din nou în vizită și am depus cu această ocazie o cerere pentru a merge. Da, thank you so much. So what else do you feel to share? I'm interested in what you've said about your next visit there
Oh
that you
yeah. That'll be the next time we sit down and decide to record something.
oh
I
yeah.
will take you through what happened to me the following year. I
Mm.
will meet a hybrid. So if you know what a hybrid is, you'll understand who Kumu is. And I didn't know anything about her before she came into my life, but clearly she knew things about me that I was
Nobody.
supposed to know. She will introduce me to light beings on
Mhm.
several occasions and
Mm.
photograph the circumstances.
I love that. And you have those photos?
I do.
I can't I can't wait
The
to see
next
them. Please
time
send over if
we'll
you
do it on
can.
my platform so I can share
Yes.
these pictures because they're meant to be shared with others. Pictures of me
Yeah.
surrounded by light beings weren't supposed to demonstrate Lowell's the only guy that can do that. He's the first one. That's
Oh.
what you're supposed to get out of it.
But we can do this because I can make you co-host now and you can share whatever you want. You don't need
Do
to,
you want to see one of them before we log off today?
it's compulsory.
All
You
right, let
don't
me
get
see.
away like that. You know, I
If you can make me a co-host,
I'll make you co-host to make sure you can share screen. I don't know, maybe you can share now, but just to make sure.
I
Deci o să
just
ne
tried and I wasn't allowed. Only the
Okay,
host can share this meeting.
go ahead. Now you are co-host. Deci, el o să
Okay.
ne arate poze cu ființe intradimensionale pe care le-a cunoscut ulterior, pentru că la a doua vizită a întâlnit o ființă hibrid care i-a făcut cunoștință cu multe ființe de lumină și a fotografiat aceste întâlniri dintre el și ființele de lumină, așa că o să ne arate poze cu aceste ființe. What do you define as hybrid? What's your definition so that we have a mutual understanding of what you mean?
Um, Kumu
Mm-hmm.
was the product of uh, some science. Her
Oh,
father was a soldier in the military in the 50s.
all right.
And back when, whether you want to consider it the government or whatever this body was that had interactions with extraterrestrial content in different forms,
All right.
somehow they had extracted some, I don't want to call it alien DNA because that just gives it a wrong tone. But let's
Genetic.
just say they had some exotic DNA material
All
that
right.
they understood the powers that these people, these beings possessed. Of course, the military wanted to see if they could harness that somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked for some volunteers, and her father was one of them. Her mother knew nothing about any of this until Kumu reached the age of 5, at which time she started to exhibit some abilities and gifts that no one else had, and was
Mm.
put into a program with
Oh,
other
wow.
children who had similar abilities. Now, I'm not saying she works for the government. She does
No.
not. She's here to work and clear for Gaia. That's her job. That's what she does. Um, and I'm not saying that she hasn't done work with government agencies because they've come across things they didn't understand
Okay.
and asked if she did. Sometimes she didn't, and sometimes she did. Anyway, what you're
Sure.
seeing here is at the end of this day, the day I first met her, she stood up toward the end of the afternoon and went over behind this plant. And can
Mm.
you see the light being that she's called in?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The one who is Iridescent, yes, very beautiful. Yes, I get goosebumps. Of
Well,
course.
after she took these three pictures, she called me over and said, I
Mm-hmm.
want you to put your arms around the plant. And she gave me this ELI-OM to chant. And so I
Uh-huh.
did it for about a minute until I felt silly, and then I stopped doing it. And by that time, she was done taking whatever pictures she was taking.
Uh-huh.
So now we moved inside the house so we could get out of the sun so she could show me the pictures she'd taken. So she showed me these three, and then she showed me this.
Ah, yeah.
Yes, it was interacting with me. And
Yes.
then I was going to receive some downloads.
Uh-huh. Behind your back. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
Nice.
then she left.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know what any of this meant, but we got a call the next morning that she was going to come back. Now, we didn't know
Mm-hmm.
why, but here she came. So this is what happened the next day.
I'll translate. Deci, l-am
Okay.
întrebat ce înseamnă pentru el o ființă hibrid, pentru că pentru mine are multe semnificații acest cuvânt și mi-a explicat că prietena cu care s-a întâlnit acolo în Mount Shasta era o combinație între un ADN al tatălui ei, care era uman, uh, și combinat cu un ADN, un material genetic extraterestru, care a fost recoltat de armata americană și folosit pentru anumite teste, anumite programe, astfel încât au fost creați anumiți copii care au ADN combinat cu anumite ființe extraterestre, ADN care, practic, ei intenționau să dezvolte niște ființe cu supraputeri care să aibă cumva puteri similare cu ale ființelor extraterestre pe care le cunoscuseră, mă rog. Și așa a rezultat această fată și s-au împrietenit și au făcut în natură poze cu aceste ființe de lumină pe care ni le-a arătat în fotografii. A spus că el întâi au fost fotografiate primele trei ființe de lumină și apoi s-a dus lângă o plantă și l-a chemat și pe el să pună mâinile în jurul, brațele în jurul plantei respective și să incanteze o mantră. Și în timp ce incanta această mantră, ea i-a făcut niște fotografii. El la un moment dat s-a oprit și nu a mai incantat mantra respectivă că s-a simțit așa rușinat și au intrat în casă să vadă fotografiile și au văzut că în spatele lui practic era această ființă de lumină care apăruse și inițial lângă planta respectivă și că l-a susținut cumva energetic și apoi i-a downloadat anumite energii în corpul lui. Speaking of hybrids, I've been interviewing Mary Rodwell back in the day when I started the summit. Mary
Yes.
Rodwell has been doing many hypnotic sessions with children or even adults that have reported being befriended by light beings or extraterrestrials. And they were reporting having trips on certain ships and being brought back home and then being taken on a trip again and back home, and they would learn very advanced science and so on. When some of these children were analyzed, because most of them have similar testimonials even though they're not from similar areas, they don't know each other, they haven't spoken to each other, but they have similar stories. They have studied some of them and they have noticed that some of them had non-human DNA or hybrid DNA as we call it. So there's
Yes.
many children with hybrid DNA right now. I would say that most of the new generation are actually have hybrids, even though they haven't actually been hybridized by some human organism like the military, but there are hybridizations that are made, because we've decided to come from the stars. Even I or you, I couldn't swear on having 100% human DNA right now, or our
Yeah,
parents.
we're all star seeds right now in human vessels. So,
Yes.
we can have discussions about how to dice that up later. But let
Mhm.
me finish the last part because the next day when she came back, we
Yes.
had an afternoon. And first of all, she brought artifacts that I won't show you today, but one day I will. Some
Mm-hmm.
artifacts that are all 30,000 years old that came from different places. She was given coordinates on where to find them, went out
Nice.
and found them, and she shared them with us. Anyway, at the end of this day, there is a spiral of Andara crystals on this property. If you know who Mickey Magic is and his connection with Andaras and Lady Nellie, you'll understand the power of what's on this property. So anyway, she asked us to go down and stand in the middle of the spiral that day. Now, first of all, before we stood in the middle, and you can see where the angel is, that's the center of it. We're sitting off to the side, and she's starting to take these multidimensional images. Now, I didn't know she was taking the pictures, but that is not sunlight to begin with. And doesn't it look like I'm holding something?
It does, and yet you're not, right?
I'm not holding a damn thing. But to me, at first, when I saw it, I went, it looks like a baby dinosaur.
A little
And
bit,
then when
yeah.
she showed me the pictures, she whispered, it's a serpent. She
Ah,
said and explained that's Shiva rising to protect you.
ah, wow, interesting. Yeah,
Then when we stood in the middle of it, this is the light activity that came and interacted with us.
oh wow. Oh my God, the energy is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. The crystals are fantastic too. I mean,
Oh,
I haven't seen so many and so big.
I know. When we get together again, there was one more trip. That all happened in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Two
Hmm.
weeks later, I'm scheduled to present at a conference in Shasta, and she is going to be there the week before. So we thought, look, I didn't know her well at all. And
Mm.
what I told you about her being a hybrid, at this point, I didn't know that. When we
Yes.
got to Shasta, we would agree that we'd get together, get a little better acquainted, and she
Mm.
would explain more of what just took place. And then she would invite me to two ceremonies while I'm there, and I'll share you the pictures the next time about what that was about.
Deci ne-a arătat câteva fotografii ale acestor ființe de lumină, ne-a arătat apoi o spirală de cristale Andara, în mijlocul cărora s-au dus și au avut această experiență cu ființele de lumină și cu luminile pe care le-ați văzut în fotografii. A explicat că practic nu o cunoștea pe această doamnă foarte bine inițial și ulterior s-au reîntâlnit și a explicat toate detaliile despre ce s-a întâmplat în această întâlnire și ce ființe au venit să discute cu ei. Ea era cumva specializată în lucru cu astfel de ființe și fiind cumva o combinație între pământean și extraterestru, era mai ușor să le perceapă. Eu, la rândul meu, am spus că majoritatea copiilor care vin azi au ADN hibrid, cu siguranță, adică au ADN provenit din stele sau din alte civilizații avansate. Am spus că am intervievat o doamnă și am avut o conferință live cu doamna Mary Rodwell, o terapeută în hipnoză care a discutat cu mulți copii în timpul transelor și copiii au povestit despre excursiile lor pe anumite nave, învățăturile pe care le primesc și apoi faptul că asta în timpul nopții și apoi dimineața sunt aduși înapoi pe Terra și se duc la școală unde se plictisesc, că e informația mult mai plictisitoare acolo. Și mulți dintre copiii aceștia au fost testați în mai multe feluri pentru că aveau mărturii similare, deși erau din diverse părți ale lumii și nu se cunoșteau. Au fost testați și s-a constatat că au ADN non-uman, deci mixat cu, cum am spus noi, ADN hibrid. Deci mulți dintre copii și dintre adulți și poate chiar și noi, cei de aici, nu avem chiar ADN 100% uman dacă ne-am putea testa. Alright. So, nice stories you've had. We've gone a long 3 hours, I guess. we've we've
Well, that's what it took because of the difference in time zones.
yeah.
And I left it out there. Um, like I said, if Telos was going to be the only story I was ever going to tell, we would have covered that in like 90 minutes. But there's more to my journey that tells
Much
me
more.
there is more for everybody else too. And so when every
Yeah.
year after Telos, something significant happened, and it came from unsolicited sources, you can't ignore it anymore. You just have to first
Yes.
assimilate what you didn't know before you understand you're acclimating to these new conditions, Lowell. When you started to talk about when we start to sense these other things, my experience was like they're going to show you a little bit of these extraordinary things so you get used to this level, because we're going to ramp it up the next time we expose you to something, and we're not even close to what it is we want you to understand you can experience. Even those of us that have had these, we're just kind of chipping away at the beginning of all of this unfolding. And even this level is freaking magnificent.
Yes, boy, we wish we see more. Spune că ne prezintă realitățile astea în mod gradual, pe măsură ce noi putem înțelege și pe măsură ce ne adaptăm vibrația la realitățile care ne sunt prezentate. Și chiar și puținul pe care ni l-au arătat până acum în diverse circunstanțe este absolut magnific pentru majoritatea dintre noi, dar acest puțin este poate un procent foarte, foarte, foarte mic din ceea ce noi putem experimenta și din ceea ce ei au să ne arate și pot să ne arate, doar că o prezintă gradual pentru ca noi să putem să ne adaptăm, să putem integra informația, să putem să o digerăm, ca să spunem așa, și pe măsură ce noi ne creștem frecvența, aflăm mai mult și mai mult și mai mult, vedem mai mult și mai mult și mai mult și suntem mai mult în contact cu ei. What would you say the main ingredient would be to get in contact with these beings? If somebody would try or aim for it, what would be the main ingredient, like the main secret sauce energetically, to be contacted?
Just make it your intent. We
Mhm.
know the things we think about are the things that we bring into our reality. They're ripe for the contact. I was told last summer there was going to be a greater level of inner earth contact with the surface. And I kept
Yes.
interpreting that as I'm waiting to hear everybody else's story, not knowing that my own evolution is continuing. And so there's just other extraordinary things that are into my path. I'm waiting for everybody else to catch up.
Yes. Yes, and I would add that apart from the clear intention and declaring it, the main ingredient in my experience would be love. The degree of love
Yeah.
that emanate, towards them. And we always send love. When we go to a sacred site, first thing we do, we start sending love to the woods, to the elements, to everything around, to all the beings, and to the inner and extraterrestrial. Why? Because this is the best greeting. When you send somebody love, they know you came in peace, they know you're open. If they want to show up,
it was important for you to say that, and thank you. That is important. I take it for granted. My perspective is one of the law of one, and I'm connected to everybody else. And you and I might not agree on everything in this third dimension, but you weren't supposed to. Your journey is different. And whatever gift it is inside of you that you're unwrapping is different from mine. What I can tell you as a member of the tribe is I'm freaking glad you showed up, because whatever it is, I don't possess that gift. You do. And it isn't like when I say this to every person who's found their way into the tribe, it isn't that there are some things that you will teach us and that we'll take in. But the reality is that we don't need to know what you know, because we have you. That's the thing that you play out for the rest of us, that when we see you do it, we marvel at it. And to you, it's the simplest thing you do all the time. That's when the tribe is really strong. And if there's any indication that we were not supposed to be patterned after one another, here is it. Here is the beauty of humanity, is that with the things that are emotionally charged, because that's part of who we are, that's what makes us so creative. This is why the Lemurians are interested in handing their technology over to us, because they're beyond this level of emotion. They're more black and white. When things need to be repaired, they get it. The collective comes together, they come up with a solution, and it's improved. Us, we have a process we go through.
Yeah. And we make it so complicated. There was
Yes.
a time when I was in that frequency of emotionless being. When you raise your frequency to a certain level, you overcome this process of emotion that is specific to humans. So I lived that for a while, and truth be told, here on Earth is kind of boring. People don't really understand that. They think you don't love them anymore, or you don't relate to them, or you don't connect to them, or whatever they think. They think you're kind of cold in a way. That's how they perceive it. But in truth, it's just the natural detachment of seeing the cause and the effect and the whole situation being played out even way before it starts. So you already
Yes.
know what's happening,
Oh,
and
yeah.
therefore no
We
emotion.
celebrate everybody's differences because
Hmm.
they help all of us. We don't
Yes.
see the differences that we labeled, and then automatically there has to be this side and that side, and you have to
Hmm.
pick one. And
Hmm.
now our energies have changed into those opposite sides we call enemies now. Well, I don't know how we got to use that kind of language, because
Yeah.
we used to be able to have differences, and still in the end we all came together. Remember
Yes.
when our leaders and our elected officials used to go there representing all of us? And even after the election was over, even the people that they didn't vote for, that individual, he still saw as his constituents and his
Yeah.
responsibility to do the
Yeah.
best he could for everybody. Yeah, we're not there anymore.
Well, we're in the process of remembering that. I'll translate. Deci el spune că pe vremuri când conștiința noastră era mult mai evoluată, liderii noștri ne reprezentau, spre exemplu, într-un consiliu sau într-un proces de votare, și chiar și oamenii care nu votau pentru ei erau considerați ca parte a tribului și erau luați sub aripa lor și lucrau pentru toată lumea la fel, pentru că erau parte din toată lumea și considerau că fiecare trebuie ajutat și susținut, indiferent de opinia lui, și eram capabili să vedem diferențele și divergențele dintre noi ca pe un lucru constructiv și benefic, pe când acum îl transformăm într-un lucru discordant și cauzator de conflicte. Deci conștiința noastră a involuat din punctul ăsta de vedere. Noi ar trebui să sărbătorim diferențele dintre noi și darurile pe care fiecare le are și faptul că nu suntem de acord asupra tuturor aspectelor, tocmai pentru că avem aceste diferențe sau unicități ale noastre, și faptul că eu sunt unică într-un fel și el este unic în alt fel ne ajută pe noi să co-creăm, pentru că dacă toți am fi la fel și făcuți după același carapod, nu ar mai exista creație și progres. Deci suntem făcuți diferiți în aparență, tocmai pentru a progresa împreună, și lucrurile pe care eu le știu, el nu e nevoie să le știe, pentru că exist eu pentru a transmite acea frecvență care pentru el pare extraordinară și pentru mine pare ceva uzual, și la fel și invers în cazul calităților lui. Deci fiecare avem această unicitate pe care o construim pentru a expansiona creația noastră în diversitate, pentru că noi suntem prin acest sistem emoțional al nostru, pe care lemurienii nu îl au, ei sunt deasupra emoțiilor ca frecvență și nu trăiesc emoțiile. Noi avem capacitatea de a crea și de a vrea mereu să îndreptăm lucrurile, să le transformăm, și prin asta devenim co-creatori, și ei sunt foarte interesați de această capacitate a noastră. Și am spus că a existat o perioadă când eu nu experimentam emoții, trecusem de vibrația respectivă, și aici pe pământ e plictisitor, pentru că oamenii nu relaționează, nu pot să se raporteze la acea stare, cred că nu-i mai iubești, cred că nu-ți pasă de ei și așa mai departe. Și am revenit cumva la starea de percepe emoții pentru a putea face anumite experiențe și experimente aici. Dar în Lemuria această stare este profund apreciată, pentru că prin ea noi creăm. Alright. So I feel we're completed. I don't know if you feel the same or if you feel to add
No, this
anything
is
more.
a good place to stop for sure. And this isn't going to be the last time we're going to communicate for
Absolutely.
sure.
We're
So
doing simple,
when
quite.
we give people an opportunity to let this assimilate,
Mhm.
and I'm curious to see how they respond. If they're interested in hearing more information, then we'll do this again quicker.
Yes.
But I am interested in coming to visit.
Yes. We look forward for having you here in August. Maybe you can also give a speech at our festival, tell your experience, because we're talking a lot about inner Earth and UFO and so on, as part of evolving into a more conscious civilization. You know, contact is important. The way we relate between each other, but also with the other species in inner and on Earth, in the inner Earth and exoplanetary is very important now for our evolution. So, yeah, we invite you August 15 to 18. We are here.
The most important part is that contact is taking place.
Yes, it's
Those of
already.
you who vibrate at that level, if you wish to have that,
Yeah,
the table is set for people to have these experiences.
totally.
Just find the right place and get yourself in the right alignment. But you all know that you are. I'll
Yeah.
leave you with this thought. We've been talking about healing ourselves for so long now. I'm here to declare what my guides have told me to tell you. You're
Ah,
done healing. You're
yeah.
done. You all understand where your chakras are and how they function and how they keep your vibration in alignment. You are totally in control of your vibration level. Now it's
Mm.
important for you to know all that because Earth is shifting too. And we want to do what we can to help you make that correlation with her when the time comes, because it's soon.
Yes, it's now. El spune că
Mm-hmm.
deja contactul a început, că deja noi suntem pregătiți, majoritatea dintre noi, cei de aici, din audiență, și că cumva, ca și umanitate, am trecut de nivelul de vindecare. Nu mai suntem la nivel de vindecare, acum suntem la nivel de evoluare, evoluție. Deci știm deja care sunt ceacrele noastre, cum să ne le armonizăm și tot așa. Avem deja responsabilitatea să o facem pentru că știm cum se face, asta e și asta e important. Și cei care suntem gata să fim contactați, practic contactul este pregătit și noi trebuie doar să cerem și să ne deschidem și să ne aliniem vibrația. And it's exactly 11:11 as I say this, on 11, right? But just noticing it. Și avem posibilitatea să primim acest contact odată ce cerem și fiecare dintre noi am luat această decizie de a ne menține vibrația înaltă, de a fi aici, de a ajuta și practic suntem susținuți din punctul ăsta de vedere. So thank you so much, Lowell, for all you've shared and for the news you just gave us that we are all healed and we should drop that paradigm of permanently being in a process of restoration. We are already restored.
We are. We're moving into transformation.
Yeah.
We've got it figured out now. We all know we carry light and we know why. Now it's time to put that to use.
Yes, and we're good to go. There's no excuse.
Exactly.
Also.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and a joy, obviously, and hope to see you soon. Of course, we're already having, this energetic feedback that people are very happy with this information. And of course, we will make a sequel to see what our stories you bring. Of course, there's also probably gonna be some experiences soon for you that you can, include in your portfolio to tell us.
Well, there are. I happen to be in the Sedona area right now, and I came in November. It's a lot. There's a lot of parallels between this and the Shasta story to validate some higher elevated energy that was here. And oh yeah, I found that and then some.
Yeah, so have a nice trip and tell us all about it because I feel
Thank
it's gonna
you.
be intense, especially
Will
from now
do.
on, as I'm feeling. So looking forward to connecting to you soon and learning more about your journey.
Great. Thank you again.
Welcome to Romania this summer. We're looking forward to having you here.
So am I. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Mulțumim tuturor. Am spus că îl așteptăm în România. El este acum în Sedona și a venit să verifice niște zone energetice și a găsit foarte multe locuri interesante. A zis că vrea să facem o continuare a acestei întâlniri, funcție de feedback-ul vostru, dacă v-a plăcut. Deci să ne spuneți pe grup dacă v-a plăcut și dacă vreți să continuăm cu această discuție cu Lowell. Și ne vedem la Festivalul Pranic din România cu el pentru că ar vrea să vină. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., which is 12 a.m. Pacific time, we're having a conversation with Adam Apollo. He's gonna talk to us. He's an intergalactic ambassador as well.
I'm familiar with Adam.
Yeah, Adam is an old friend, and he's talking to us about the advanced civilization and their technologies. So it's gonna be a nice conversation. He's been in contact with several intergalactic civilizations. He's been contacted. He's been on ships. He's been back. He's been all over the place. So he studied advanced civilizations for a long time, and now he's going to talk to us about Star Nations cultures and technologies and what can come for us as Earth citizens if we evolve enough to have them.
That's next. It's
That's
not
next.
like, and I want to plant the seed for your listeners. It's not like we don't have extraterrestrial visitors here checking out Earth.
Yes,
They also know that the vibration is going to be right so that they can come and visit. So think of them sending their ambassadors to see what Earth is like so they can go back and report to their beings. There is going to be more of this intergalactic visitation than we can imagine, but it's about to take place. They're here now.
Yes.
For those of us that can sense that they're here, but
yes,
it won't be long before it's clear for everyone.
Many times the experience of an emissary, what I can confirm from my own experience, the experience of such emissary are scanned through their energetic and emotional field even before us going back and reporting. So we are constantly scanned here, sent sometimes for a lifetime to experience the whole shenanigan, just to give emotional feedback, energetic feedback, mind process feedback, so that they can adapt their systems before coming here. So
that's a good point.
That's direct experience that I'm sharing now.
Wow. Thank you.
Full disclosure. And what you've said, that you are grateful for us having this experience here, this is what they're saying. They're grateful for us delegating to have this experience here so that they can take notes and adapt their system. And when we're going through the shittiest time, is the most valuable information.
Yeah, that's so far removed from their experiences for sure.
Yeah, because they can see how we adapt and especially the ones of us who have chosen love over all these situations and who were able to balance back from all the shit we've been through. That's the ones that they've been monitoring the most because they want to see how we made it, and they're able to adapt their systems accordingly if they want to come journey here, because
Yes.
they don't have the experience of emotions and sadness and suffering and all that. They're witnessing it in their emissaries, and then they can see if they want to embark or not for the next journey. It's very complex. I can talk for hours about it.
Oh, you and I we'll pick up on this another time.
For sure. It's a Pandora box. See you soon, Lowell. I'm translating what I said, and we're completing so that everybody can go to sleep.
Yes.
11:30 now. Deci am spus așa că mâine dimineață ne întâlnim cu Adam Apollo, vorbim despre civilizații extraterestre și intraterestre, cultura și tehnologiile lor. Adam Apollo este un emisar intergalactic, a studiat multe culturi și civilizații extraterestre și a fost pe nave și în contact cu ei de mulți ani, peste 20 de ani. și o să ne spună despre cultura și tehnologiile lor și tot ce a întâlnit în procesul lui de cercetare. Iar Lowell spunea că mulți sunt trimiși aici, mulți dintre extraterestri sunt trimiși aici pentru a experimenta planeta Pământ, pentru a lua notițe și pentru a le raporta înapoi acasă pe planeta lor. Și am spus că din proprie experiență știu că așa este și cei care suntem trimiși aici pentru a raporta, de multe ori suntem scanați la nivel emoțional și mental și monitorizați cum facem față, mai ales în cele mai dificile situații, mai ales dacă reușim să ne stabilizăm starea și să rămânem într-o stare de iubire. Pentru ei asta este o experiență foarte valoroasă pentru că își pot calibra sistemele funcție de experiența pe care noi o raportăm și o emitem, pentru ca ei să știe cum să se adapteze sau măcar să încerce, că nu își pot da seama ce e aici încă, să poată încerca să se adapteze cumva pentru momentul în care și ei vor veni aici. Deci toată experiența noastră, în special cea mai dureroasă, este valoroasă pentru ei, pentru a putea să se integreze în comunitate atunci când va fi necesar. Deci mâine la 9 dimineața, ora României, ne vedem din nou sau ora 12, ora Pacificului, 12 noaptea, cum alegeți. See you everybody soon. Big hugs.
Namaste.
Namaste. See you next time, whenever that is.